Good Wednesday morning to you. Week 6, we will transition Colts at Titans here. And boys, do you have the energy for should the Pacers have fouled up 3 last night?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
No, not in the first preseason game.
Can you
in the
imagine if I
preseason.
wanted to try and debate? Like if I forced you into that?
Oh, it'd be fantastic. I would have no problem with it. I can give some takes on it. We can question Rick Carlisle like it's the Eastern Conference Finals next week. Hey, why didn't you foul up 3? What's going on?
Texting
Come
Rick,
on.
hey, you mind coming on Wednesday morning
Yeah.
with us too?
We need
just
to
wanted
question
to
you.
clear up that
Yeah.
Seth Lundy game-winning 3 last night for the Atlanta Hawks. We will talk about the Pacers and their preseason opener last night in Atlanta. Certainly looked, I would say, a whole lot like last year. Offense outstanding, some defensive questions, but all in all, I'd say a pretty nice opening night for the Pacers. And again, the Colts back on the practice field today. So that injury watch for Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, among other things. Some Gus Bradley audio on that end. Still one open roster spot for the Colts as we sit here on this Wednesday morning. And I guess now we actually do need to talk about the New York Jets on this local program, right?
I love that. I did smile on the way in because I think as a defensive coordinator, I do have a little bit of a crush on Robert Saleh as a head coach. I want him absolutely.
Does your Giants fandom know that?
I want him absolutely nowhere near my team as a head coach, bumbling at press conferences and everything else. But wasn't it perfect that news broke at 10:08? That we didn't get the first time to react to Rob Saleh, an NFL head coach, being fired purely by a meddling owner, which I know you guys have had some fun with in the past year.
Meddling starting quarterback.
Well, I think the meddling starting quarterback as well. So it is manna from heaven. I think the Jets have replaced the Cowboys on all the national shows, which I didn't think in my
Settle
lifetime.
down just a
Yeah,
little
I'm
bit.
40 years old. I didn't think that would ever happen. So I feel like my life has peaked already. That at 40 years old, the Cowboys have been moved aside for the New York Jets. How about that?
So if I have this right, if the Jets beat the Bills on Monday Night Football,
Right.
they are atop the AFC East.
Correct. You are right on that, sir.
Gosh, that ownership, unbelievable. So Woody Johnson was an ambassador to the UK.
Yeah, under Trump he was, yeah.
And so
A
he
couple years ago.
couldn't or didn't make the hire, maybe I should say, of Bob Saleh. His brother, Christopher, did it. So now that Woody's no longer in
got
that
him out of
position. Yeah, I don't like that guy.
No.
What the hell was that? I studied abroad for a little while. I came back. I don't like what was going on here in the States.
Oh,
He's done.
man. I will say that, we could have some fun with it. Saleh was not a good head coach. He was in his 5th year. There was an obvious
Just do it in the
schism.
offseason.
There was 1,000%. You should have never let him coach this year. We have seen that in sports. That you get into a year, you're giving a guy another. I'm trying to think of a local example. Maybe Archie Miller fit into that. Maybe a little bit. You give him one more year. You knew the last year was going to be a disaster.
Is this going to be Ryan Walters next year?
It was a disaster. Yeah, probably. I heard on the way in. Kurt Darling was doing the morning check down. He had a piece of sound. Ryan Walters thinks they can turn it around. Good luck, young man. God bless you and good luck.
Is it Illinois this weekend?
It is Illinois this weekend. Are you going golfing, by the way? You look very golf today.
No,
I got all the sweats on.
I wish. I try on Wednesdays. Wednesday's kind of the big Colts media day.
Sure it is.
I try not to just wear like Notre Dame T-shirts from 1988.
So you try not to look like me and Mark today.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I understand. I didn't know if you were going golfing later on after Shane Steichen.
No, weather though looks outstanding.
75 and sunny. It's perfect weather.
I assume that'll be this case coming up on Sunday. Nothing says Colts and Titans or the Colts in the AFC South like for the 4th straight week, Spiro Ditas and Adam Archuleta.
You should just be on the team plane, like I said. You should be on the team plane.
Yeah, by now I kind of feel like they might know as much as Matt Taylor and Coach Venturi about the team. Move out of the way, Lara. Spiro's here. And he knows all about the team. So.
Sunday at 1 o'clock.
Supposed to be nice weather in Nashville, though?
I think so. Certainly think about everybody down there in Florida. Boy, that Tampa area. I know we'll have Stephen Holder on coming up here in a bit. Used to live in Tampa, used to cover the Bucks, and I've seen Trisha Whitaker has had some pictures, and again, this is from Helene, from a couple weeks ago. Rick Venturi, he's got a home down there,
does he?
and he just devastated the first time around, and now you see, Milton coming here and supposedly hitting Landshore tonight. Boy, just awful. Try to compare it to like anything I've been through, and it's like, I probably remember a handful of times in my life having to go in the basement for a tornado, but like I just first off, a hurricane just reaches different levels, and like the 2 to 3 day prep. In one way, obviously, it's good because you can theoretically get out of town if need be, but another way, it's like you're just this inevitable thing is about to hit, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, what I think about it is, you leave town and you don't know what's going to be left when you get back. And so for the next however many hours, when all the rain and wind and everything else that's going on, all the devastation, you don't know what you're going back to. You don't know if your house is going to be there. You don't know if it's, if it's going to be, possibly untouched in certain ways. So it is nasty. It's bad, and I've been consuming probably more of this one than even the last one for some reason, as it's just going to hit Florida just square. I mean, it is just going to hit Florida square. So, yeah, thoughts and prayers to everybody there. It's a nasty thing. I think over the next 48 hours, we're probably going to see even more damning photos and video of what's going on there.
And Stephen Huller going to join us at 8. Scott Agnes talking about the Pacers preseason opener from last night at 9. Anything grand for you?
Well,
last night of the Pacers?
No, come on. It's a preseason game, but I think you're spot on. I think you saw a little bit of what we saw last year, and that is the offense, especially on the front line, looked pretty, the offense looked pretty good. The defense didn't look pretty good. I mean, they had this written down. I don't know where I put it. They had that first group early on, had a 9-point lead, had a 25-16 lead. The second unit comes in the game, and in 4 minutes, they end up trailing at the end of the first quarter, 35-31. That would probably be mine. I know after the game, Carlisle talked about it, that, it's good to get guys out there. I agree, playing the starters about 16 minutes or so in the first half. And listen, the story of the season is going to be about filling out the back end of the roster and, getting Benedict Matherin and Jarris Walker. I know we always pick out those two guys specifically, but getting those guys some run, seeing where they are, Matherin health-wise, getting back into a basketball rhythm, and finding out, quite frankly, if Jarris Walker is going to be part of this 9-10 man rotation. So, I was all good with it. I was actually a little impressed, and I'm going to butcher his name, and I wrote it down phonetically. Rashia? How do you say the Zachariah who went number one?
Risha Shea, right?
Risha Shea.
Yeah.
Risha Shea.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
I thought he was nice. I mean, I'd never seen him play, and, he's a young guy. His stats aren't very much. He's from France, but listen, I know it's a preseason game. I know the Pacers defensively are down the line of teams that Atlanta will play, but I thought he was all right. I thought he was a pretty good player.
Yeah, Hawks number 1 overall pick from this past year, probably the number 1 pick we've known like the least about, I feel like, in years. Yeah, for those, I guess, that didn't pay any attention to the game last night, I don't blame you. The Pacers went with their starters for, as Andy said, about 15, 16 minutes that first half. It was only hockey line subs, though. It was here's the first unit, and then boom, here comes the second unit. They didn't really mix and match at all there. Again, no Miles Turner on top of what Rick Carlisle shared with us yesterday. No Isaiah Jackson. I think right knee contusion, I believe, for Turner there. So James Wiseman got the start, and
thought he was okay.
Yeah, I thought Wiseman gave him some nice minutes. And, like, inevitably, and this probably goes for every center in the league, but I feel like Miles Turner and or Isaiah Jackson will have a stretch this season where they miss a week or two. And all of a sudden, James Wiseman, kind of like a third quarterback or, maybe even that third running back, it's like you don't pay attention to him week 1, but, sure enough, Tyler Goodson, played a notable role for the Colts this past weekend. Wiseman, I think, is going to have to be ready for that at some point over an 82-game season, and I really liked the move when it happened. I equate a lot of what the Pacers and or the Colts do in free agency as swings at bat, and to me, the Wiseman swing was like swinging 3-0 or swinging 3-1.
Sure, why not?
Just
I agree.
The littlest amount of risk on it. He's a name. That's about the only thing that's risky about it because it's a 2-year deal. The second year is a team option. You would think that his third NBA stop would bring a high level of motivation. You would think he would look at the fellow guys in his draft class and be like, oh, wait, Obi Toppin resurrected his career here. Aaron Nesmith here. Obviously, Halliburton on a huge basis. But you would think that would be motivating as well. So Wiseman got the start last night with the Pacers missing both their centers, and I thought gave them some really quality minutes. So if I had to pick maybe out an individual who I thought impressed, I will go with the young center.
Yeah, I was reading Dustin Dupirac this morning, and I agreed with him. It's like Carlisle's going to ask him to do the easy things. Run the floor, play a little bit of defense, grab a couple rebounds, and when Halliburton or Nemhard or anybody else gets into the lane, dunk the basketball, right? I mean, Wiseman,
keep
that's
it
all you got to
simple.
do. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to step out and shoot 18-footers. We're not asking you to go one-on-one to the basket a bunch of times. We're not asking you to shoot a bunch of three-pointers, but run the floor, grab a couple rebounds when you're in there for 4 or 5 minute spurts. So maybe he can give him something. Listen, I think that position behind Turner and then ultimately this offseason, next offseason, what happens with Miles Turner is going to be kind of the next story to the Pacers. Before we take a break here, anything from Gus Bradley yesterday stand out to you? I know coming up at 7:30, we'll talk more about your embattled defensive coordinator. Gus Bradley did meet with the media for about 10 minutes yesterday.
I thought we got a sliver of a potential change in his approach that I think many people will say, well, duh, or about time. So that is something that I do want to share. And then, I posted something, pretty lengthy on the defensive issues, Gus Bradley in general. Just a few items that I want to get to. I don't think any of it will be uplifting for Colts fans to hear.
Well,
but I also think it's the reality, and I'm not going to ignore the reality of where the situation is at right now. Now, Gus Bradley and Robert Saleh used to coach together, correct? Couple stops.
Oh, did they? Oh, I'm sure they did. I think all these assistants have coached together at one point in their careers.
Seattle.
Was it Seattle?
And
okay.
Jacksonville.
Okay.
I think Robert Saleh
Position
holds
coach?
Gus in some high regard here. Can we look at a little defensive analyst hire for the rest of the season?
Listen,
Bring Bob Saleh on down?
You know what I think. You already know what I think. I think absolutely.
Somebody noted
1,000%.
also that the local, like Robert Saleh, firing was Frank Reich. 3-5-1, and then he was fired in November. I'm like, that's close enough.
Oh, mid-season. See,
Yeah.
I was going to go a little bit more like the Chuck Pagano final year was like, wait, why are we doing this? Like, Chris Bauer's not keeping
you're
Chuck
talking
Pagano.
about why they run it back when you knew that was
like
going to be the...
it was inevitable that Saleh was going, like this was going to blow up in Saleh's face.
Like the Jets are 2-3. They're not freaking 0-5 and lost every game by 50. I mean, they're
also not on the defensive side that they're struggling as much. The offense has been absolutely terrible.
I love that Rodgers hates them.
They win Monday night. They are if they win Monday night and we do if the playoffs started today, they would host a home playoff.
They'd at least be a 4 seed, yeah. Fireman Ed.
If you're doing that on October 8th, just do it on February 8th.
Exactly. Listen, I know. That's Woody Johnson, baby. So the Jet stuff will fuel ESPN today. You better get used to it there. Coming up on the other side, your morning check down. Some of that sound from Gus Bradley, plus a big night. We talk about the Pacers, a big night and day yesterday in Major League Baseball. So your news and scores from overnight. We'll do it next. Appreciate you hanging out with us. It's a Hump Day Wednesday right here. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Down. Brought to you by Marian University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUKnights.com for tickets.
Coming up in about 10 minutes, did Gus Bradley hint at a change for the Colts defense in Week 6, or is this just wishful thinking? Share some thoughts on that here in a few. Andy Sweeney, busy night. Go ahead and start the check down.
Yeah, it was a busy night. We'll get to the Pacers here in a second. Let me give you just one piece of Gus Bradley sound. He did meet with the media yesterday for about 10 minutes. And listen, at this point, there are a few things, and we'll talk about it here in about 12 minutes, that I didn't like, a few things that I did. At this point, I'm not sure what he can say. They just need to get out there and play better football. But Gus Bradley said the team did sit down. They looked at the film. They didn't like the film, but they needed to do so to fix everything on this defense.
We had a great meeting to go through all the tape. We watched, 85% of the plays, the tough ones for sure, and just the accountability part of it and making sure everybody understood what it should look like. And I think there's a clear vision. They understand what it should look like, as do we, and that gives me the faith that we can get this done.
Well, Will Levis is quite the slump buster. You would hope, you would think, you would pray. We'll see about his availability today at Titans practice, again dealing with a right shoulder injury. So his status, Anthony Richardson, again, Jonathan Taylor to me needs multiple days, and that's the one I'm a little iffy about here on the Colts injury front into Week 6. So we'll start to get some answers on that coming up later today.
And by the way, can I just interject Jonathan Taylor? If you're talking like that about him, not that he doesn't play this weekend, but to me, that's the one that I need to see out there is Jonathan Taylor. I just think he's too dynamic. You saw that running game. Trey Sermon's not going to give you that much. I thought Goodson maybe, should play a little bit more this Sunday. But to me, we can talk about Anthony Richardson. To me, Jonathan Taylor, getting him on the field matters just as much.
All right, Pacers preseason opener last night in Atlanta. The starters played just a half. 15 minutes for them. They were together as a unit, not really interchanging the second unit at all. Again, James Wiseman played with an injured Miles Turner and Isaiah Jackson. Normal starters from there of Tyrese Halliburton, Andrew Nembhard, who played very well, Aaron Nesmith, and Pascal Siakam was his smooth self on top of that. Benedict Mathurin, I would say a moment or two as a facilitator. Nothing too crazy from him in the second unit. Same thing with Jarris Walker on that end. And
what about Cole Swider?
Yeah, actually, I thought Swider came in, knocked out some buckets
well,
there.
He's trying to make the team. He's trying to be the 15th guy.
I certainly remember him in college.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, that's a guy that is definitely has a green light and can shoot it very well and is a big shooter. I mean, he's probably 6'7", 6'8" there. So, yeah, Cole Swider had some moments there late. But, yes, other takeaways?
My other takeaway was Pascal Siakam knocking down threes.
He was what, 3 or 4, 2 or 3, something like that?
He was 3 or 4. Is he a better three-point shooter? I mean, come on, you join the Pacers, you got to be a better three-point shooter. I know it's just one game. It's something I'm going to watch.
Pacers. My takeaway was it was nice to just turn on the TV and be able to watch the game. It was a nice change of pace for me.
It really was.
Well,
no app issues.
Don't get used to it. Tomorrow night, no TV for the Pacers as they are on the road for their second preseason game. Will be at home for both of their final 2 preseason games, and those will be available Bally Sports here locally. Khalil Ware, really nice preseason debut down in Miami last night. 13 points off the bench, 5 rebounds in 16 minutes.
I also didn't know that Dominique Wilkins was the analyst for the Hawks TV booth. That was interesting.
He's good.
He was very good.
Yeah, the play-by-play guy, Bob Rathburn, I forget where. He was in Louisville for something. I met him. He's a nice guy, too. So it was a fine listen. It was a fine listen.
It's almost like you're on like an illegal stream because you're watching a team's broadcast that you normally wouldn't see.
By the way, KB says no TV for the Pacers. Oh, boy. That's one where you fire up the illegal Russian streams. Where I'm
Stream East, right, Mark?
Yes. I'm having to knock down all the pop-ups. I don't need Viagra. I don't need Cialis. I don't need any of the...
I mean, you are 40.
Well,
so just hold on.
Maybe in a couple years, I don't need any of it.
Well, you might need that. That could be a commercial upcoming here.
Well, if I get it, I'm not getting it from the Russian feed, I guess is the better way to say that. Quickly, Major League Baseball, boy, today is going to be a big one. Mets over the Phillies 7-2 yesterday.
How about the Indiana State guy?
Hey, listen.
Sean Manaea.
He got out of trouble in, what was it, the 5th or 6th inning, and he was really good. Padres over the Dodgers 6-5. So right now, the Mets and Padres can put away the Phillies and Dodgers. And today, we have 4 games starting at 3 o'clock. Tigers, Guardians at 3. Phillies, Mets at 5. Again, elimination game there. Yankees, Royals at 7. And then at 9 o'clock, the Padres could close out the Dodgers. So by midnight tonight, the Phillies and Dodgers could be out of here. How about that?
It's just crazy like the Mets. I mean, they're down to their last, 2 outs in that wild card round, and here they are 1 game away from the NLCS. And then if you went to bed, 6-5 in the first 3 innings, Padres, Dodgers. I mean, fireworks galore. No runs the final 6 innings last night there. So as Andy said, all 4 games here on this Wednesday, and 2 of them could be a clinch. Just a couple other items of note on my end. It'll be the Minnesota Lynx against the New York Liberty in the final of the WNBA. So the Connecticut Sun bow out there in that decisive Game 5. Again, the Sun.
That's too bad.
Who eliminated the Fever.
Yeah, too bad.
I think Fever fans hate the Lynx more, right? Because that's the coach that didn't put Caitlin Clark on Team USA.
Yeah, what's her name? Is it Cheryl Reeve? Yeah. I said, give me the Lynx. That's what I said in the postseason. Of course, they probably would have cleaned up the Fever.
Not sure that would have gone any differently.
No.
And I love that announcement yesterday from IndyCar. Street race down in Arlington. Roger Penske and Jerry Jones shaking hands yesterday down there. Looks like right around Jerry's world.
I'm sure.
I think that is a great partnership. Street race in a huge city, of course, down there. I would assume you would get some Pato Award fans in that part.
I think you probably would.
Of the country.
Does Jake Query have a belt buckle? Do we know if he has cowboy boots and a belt buckle? Mark, you may need to reach out to him.
Yeah, Jake certainly is one that is very particular about his fashion.
It's right past my collection of colognes. Come this way.
Yeah, sift through the watches and the colognes, and you'll get to the belt buckle.
Does he have a Western cowboy cologne? I guess that would be the question.
Yes, I would say 1,000% on that.
All right, good deal. There's your morning check down. Coming up on the other side, KB, you have hinted at it, so let's talk about it. Could there be a change on the Colts defense, or is it just simple wishful thinking by now for all of us? We'll dive into Gus Bradley's words, and we'll do it next. Appreciate you hanging out with us. It's a Wednesday right here. Wake up call on the Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Love me a little Nappy Roots. Good day right there from Mark Dykton. As we are back on a Wednesday morning, I'm not going to lie. When I saw that announcement yesterday, Tyrese Halliburton in a shoe deal with Puma, I think of Puma as soccer. Should I start thinking of them as basketball?
Well, okay, so you know Chris Brickley, who's the guy that works out all the NBA guys. He's one of the big Puma ambassadors, and they have a couple athletes, but no, I mean, when you think of Puma, you don't think of NBA basketball. Good for Tyrese, though. I bet it's a lot of money.
So is Puma, like, up and coming in this world here?
Don't ask me.
From an NBA standpoint?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
So, like, DeAndre Ayton, LaMelo Ball.
Okay.
I guess, is Boogie Cousins still playing basketball?
No, he doesn't play anymore. He tried to. Last couple years, he's tried to come back, but
I think
Kuzma, last year.
Never know what color hair Kyle Kuzma is rocking.
No, I mean, all fine players, but Tyrese is obviously the best one. Hey, it's some good money, baby. As long as, listen, the biggest problem, I know James Harden ran into this, a number of years ago when he signed with Adidas, is you just can't be caught in public with Jordans on. That's going to be the biggest problem for Tyrese and all these guys. If you don't sign with Nike or Jordan brand, you can't be caught out in public with MJs on.
Well,
that's
Scott
the thing.
Agnes is going to join us at 9, and we'll certainly talk a little bit about this, but he had some funny moments, I think, from Media Day of Tyrese making sure that he was not caught in public.
Exactly.
Rocking some of that stuff. And that commercial, that was shot in a very iconic gym for those that saw it yesterday. That's, I think it's Memory Gym up in Lebanon, where some scenes from Hoosiers were shot as well, and certainly a Rick Mount iconic spot there. So a little bit of a Hoosiers feel to the announcement yesterday. Tyrese Halliburton and Puma.
Yeah, it was a fun commercial. Tyrese's dad, who is a star now, over the last, year and a half, 2 years. He's
out
become
of the
a
next
star.
race,
Yes, he is.
Happy to see.
Well, that's a good thing. So congratulations for Halliburton. Again, the last 2.5 years, pretty good. Max deal, all NBA team, you get more money on top of it. Team USA, not too bad. All-star appearances, not too bad. Eastern Conference Finals, not too bad. Big deal with Puma, not too bad. It's a pretty good life, isn't it?
Passing out water on a gold medal Olympic team.
Passing out water, yeah. I mean, he's got it all going. All right, so I'm interested. I'm sure the fan base is as well. What did Gus Bradley say yesterday that could hint at a change with what has been a pathetic defense in the first month of the season? Go ahead.
It was a bit late in the presser, but, when you listen to Gus Bradley, Jim Bob Cooter, Shane Steichen, okay, what isn't coach speak? I mean, that's kind of that's why I enjoy Rick Carlisle conversations with us 8 o'clock every Tuesday, because I think the vast majority of it is not coach speak. And I did think kind of late in that presser, Gus said something to the effect of, at times we do need to play tighter coverages. We do need to have our corners closer to the line of scrimmage. And trust me, as soon as those words just exited my mouth, I'm sure there are many people in their cars right now uttering some phrase of, depending on if the kids are in the back seat or not, about bleeping time.
Well, one of them sitting 5 feet from you. It's me. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
And Mark Dykton's nodding his head as well.
Yeah, of course he is.
I don't want to act like, Gus Bradley just found the perfect cure for some disease out there, but certainly it was words that I'm like, yes, that needs to happen. And frankly, it should have happened a long, long time ago. So obviously that is the case. And, I said this to you yesterday, Andy, if there was ever a week to not let a quarterback find a rhythm, it would be an injured right throwing shoulder Will Levis on the schedule. This has probably been if I could sum down the Gus Bradley experience to one gripe, it would be, I don't understand the massive belief in, no, we'll give up those underneath throws.
I just don't get it.
I
just don't get it.
We'll come up and make those tackles, because when you do that and you let these quarterbacks get into rhythms, I am a firm believer that all of a sudden you're providing a jolt. You're instilling confidence. You're instilling belief in some of these quarterbacks, particularly the struggling ones, i.e. Trevor Lawrence last week. And I tweeted out yesterday, Trevor Lawrence has played 55 career games. He is a 63% passer. His 3 highest completion percentage games of his career, all against Gus Bradley Colt defenses.
Yeah, shocker.
91%, 83%, and then Sundays, 82%. So again, Andy, I don't want to act like this was earth-shattering. Oh, my gosh, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard in the world, but it sounded a little different to me. And, yes, there's an element of about bleeping time, but it's better than the alternative, right?
Yeah, I don't see. I'm stuck. When I'm listening to Gus Bradley yesterday, you'll like this. I am trying to find out, yes, what is not coach speak, and I would agree with you. Him agreeing with the media. Was it Joel who asked that question? Joel A. Erickson, our guy that we had on yesterday?
Yeah.
I thought it was, and I'm like, when Gus is admitting that the media member who is saying, hey, basically, why aren't you playing closer to the wide receivers is something that they need to do, that also scares the hell out of me just a little bit. I don't mind saying it.
Let me go here, because after the Green Bay game, I said to him, do you feel like your defense needs to evolve?
Right, I remember. Yeah, I remember.
Because, that's been another question.
Sure it has.
Again, you talk with NFL coaches, they're like, yeah, when we prep for the Colts, it's probably one of the easier defensive preps that we have. And he was, I would say, rather adamant that day that he didn't feel like they needed to evolve, and said that actually he felt like some of the early season struggles were when they were too complex. And no, we need to get back to, simpler stuff and let our guys play fast. So this is different than that. Now, again, this was a little tidbit late in the presser. It could have been a throwaway line. It might be me, again, wishful thinking, but it was at least something that sounded different to me.
Yeah, I would say a couple different things with this. The tackling issue that they have, to me, that's not a schematic issue.
No, but it's a big issue.
But it's a huge issue. To me, I thought against Jacksonville, it might have been the biggest issue were the missed tackles. And to me, that is an individual thing. I'm almost not putting that on Gus Bradley. They work on tackling. I mean, guys like E.J. Speed played, and I love you. I love E.J. Speed, and I hope, whether it's here in Indy or, somewhere else, I hope he gets a nice little chunk of change from being a Tarleton State guy to being an unknown late draft pick and special teams guy, and working his way all the way up to being a starter in the NFL and a really good player, probably an above average player. But in Jacksonville on Sunday, he was bad. I mean, he was missing tackles first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. So, to me, some of that is an individual thing. Zaire Franklin has talked about that. Some of that is a fundamental individual thing. The thing that I don't understand, we played that clip on the film session. Mark, can you play that again, clip 2? Here's Gus Bradley. We played that during the check down. Play it again. I just want to react to one quick thing that kind of feeds into what you're talking about.
We had a great meeting to go through all the tape. We watched, 85% of the plays, the tough ones for sure, and just the accountability part of it and making sure everybody understood what it should look like. And I think there's a clear vision. They understand what it should look like, as do we, and that gives me the faith that we can get this done.
Around the Green Bay game, he said the exact same thing. If your team run it back, this is my biggest problem. If your team run it back, how do these guys not know what their assignments are or where they're supposed to be? And this goes into...
theoretically, that shouldn't be an issue.
That should not be the issue. We should be, the Pacers, to relate it to them on defense, even though last night wasn't great. But, one thing we asked Coach Carlisle yesterday was, defensively, you have all these same guys back. And, for months now, and you've had an offseason, they should know where they are defensively, and you shouldn't be on the basic building blocks. You should be on a much elevated level on teaching defense. And to me, that's a little problematic. I know that when I listen to Gus Bradley, that a lot of times now, because it's been so bad and because they're losing and because he's got so much heat on him, I find myself rolling my eyes all the time when he's talking. And it's difficult not to do that. It's like, well, the guys are stunned out there. Wow, why are they stunned out there? Well, we had a meeting and now the guys know where they're supposed to be. Well, that's fine. And maybe at some point that makes somebody feel better. But for me, I've heard that 2 or 3 times this season. So, playing more coverage, playing closer to wide receivers, that's fine. I hope so. You got to give that defensive front, even though it's beat up, a chance. And I'll say this, besides the Denver Broncos being on the schedule, and Denver scored, 34 points against the Raiders on Sunday, you're probably facing Would you say the second worst offense you're going to face all year on Sunday with the Titans? I mean, they have Calvin Ridley, who's a fine player, and they have Tony Pollard, who's a fine player, and they have Mason Rudolph and Will Levis at quarterback. I mean, that's the word. That's as beat up and as.
Don't they face the Patriots?
They do. That's why I said second. The Patriots would be the first.
I thought Denver was the other one.
Well, you're right. I guess you're right. I mean, I don't know. You could convince me that one of those offenses is better. But you know what I'm saying.
They're facing a bad offense.
You're facing one of the worst offenses that you're going to face all season long. Like, if they go out there and the Titans look more than competent on offense, I mean, I don't know how we sit here on Monday and try to spin it that this defense could figure anything out other than DeForest Buckner comes back and plays at the highest level he's ever played at.
Jason chimes in here. Gus realizing coverage should be tighter is like him having a revelation that oxygen is required for human life sustainability.
Yeah. It's like a radio person. Oh, we need a microphone to broadcast out to the thousands of people.
Press the on.
Yeah, you got to press the on button.
We get into sports debates a lot of time, and the cutting of athletes, the benching of athletes, the firing of coaches, that becomes a somewhat frequent topic. And there are many times, Andy, where I don't consider myself like this hyperbolic individual, just kind of rushes to that end. Now,
sure.
I felt like there was a lot of validity last year to bench Darius Leonard. I guess in a way we kind of debated. I don't know if we ever got there like Anthony Richardson, Joe Flacco on Monday. To me, I don't think that needs to be a serious conversation right now. The Gus Bradley firing needs to be serious. This is one where I am 1,000% it needs to be a real conversation. And again, for me, this is a 3-year running issue. And I wrote something on our website, 1075thefan.com, on it. This year, we've seen it. It's the Joe Mixon biggest rushing day in 3 years. Josh Jacobs' biggest rushing day in 2 years. Career-level games, and I get Caleb Williams has barely played in the NFL, but Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence have played in the NFL for quite a while, and they both had career games against you. You go back to 2022. That was the year that you blew fourth quarter 2-minute leads in your own building. I mean, you think about that. These teams, they've got a lead, it's late, a chance to close it out defensively, and Davis Mills drives the length of the field and beats you. And Taylor Heineke drives the length of the field and beats you. Jalen Hurts, who obviously is a very good quarterback, also did that. We all remember the parting of the sea and Rick Venturi's audible gasp at that on that call against Philadelphia. So that's 2022. So again, so far 2022, you had those issues. 2024, you've had these career games for, I'd call them rather nondescript players. I mean, Mixon and Jacobs are fine. They're not, Adrian Peterson and Derrick Henry.
Possession into the end zone for a...
Haven't busted that one out in a long time.
How did you find that so quickly?
I have it at the ready, Kevin.
Oh, goodness. Can I
And
hear
in 2023.
Yeah.
Possession into the end zone for a...
So again, we've mapped out this
It's
year.
great for Venturi.
We mapped out 2022. Last year, 3 losses to backup quarterbacks. P.J. Walker, Taylor Heineke, and Jake Browning. Andy, I think something not a lot of people realize about the losses to those 3 quarterbacks, the most points the Cleveland Browns scored all season with P.J. Walker against the Colts. And, came in, early in the second quarter, something like that. The most points the Cincinnati Bengals scored all year was with Jake Browning against the Colts.
Browning looked fantastic.
The most points the Atlanta Falcons scored all year was with Taylor Heineke against the Colts. 3 backup quarterbacks beat you, which, again, that stands out enough. But they had season highs in points against you. I mean, how does the Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen, Jim Irsay, whoever is up on that rung looking at this, making this decision, not sit there inside of the offices on West 56 and say, boys, we got to have a real conversation. And again, it's mostly to send a message, probably more than anything, but that conversation has got to be on the table. And again, there are times where, we've debated the status of Ryan Walters or Mike Woodson or, again, the benching of Darius Leonard or, I don't know, I'm trying to think of Pacers examples. Maybe nothing recently because the Pacers have obviously been ascending as a team.
Yeah, but listen, the Pacers have sent guys to the bench around Christmas. Carlisle talked about it. I mean, they brought up Nembhard and, guys like
Bruce
Matherin and Bruce
I guess,
Brown went to the bench.
So, again, these conversations arise in sports all the time. I mean, Marcus Freeman with Notre Dame. And I would say more often than not, I look into them, but I don't give them a ton of validity. This one has plenty of evidence. It's a totally fair point to make, and frankly, it's a bit shocking that it's not more on the front burner when you look at the issues that they've had. So, again, it's just so alarming. I think the article that I put up on the website enlightens more of it. But again, just go back each of these last 3 years. You can take, I would say, rather large sample sizes, whether it's this year, the individual performances, and being 25th in points allowed when you've only played one top half offense in the league. That one team was Green Bay, didn't have Jordan Love. You go back to 2023, the 3 losses to backup quarterbacks, the season high in points allowed, and then 2022, 2 minutes to go in these games. You've got the lead, you're at home, and you can't finish them off.
You guys might know a better example here locally of, I have definitely felt it with like Daniel Jones with the Giants, where it's like, it's like, could this be the year? It's year 5, it's year 6. And I'm like, guys, we keep having the same effing conversation. Every year we have the same conversation. I mean, that's the Gus Bradley conversation. It's maddening. It's maddening. There's always right now, if later today, Chris Ballard gave a press conference, he would stick up for Gus Bradley. He would talk about Gus Bradley's resume, just like Shane Steichen did 2 days ago. And he would look at you and Stephen Holder, who we're going to have on in 15 minutes, and he'll look at all the assembled media. He'd look you guys in the eyes, and he would say, well, we've had injuries. Those are the 2 things he'd say. I already know it. Like, if Chris Ballard today had a press conference, it would be maddening. He'd back Gus Bradley. I don't know why. And he would talk about injuries and how Gus, 15 years ago in the Legion of Boom, with Pete Carroll, was able to do some things. Listen, yesterday Robert Saleh got fired. And to some, that was seen, and I should say to many, that was seen as like a hot take thing. Like how could Woody Johnson do that? So Rob Saleh gets fired, and there are people, while not really backing Saleh, with the timing of it and the fact that Monday night they beat Buffalo, the first place in the AFC East, they would host a playoff game, you could have those conversations. If Gus Bradley later on today got let go, who in any NFL circle would bash the Indianapolis Colts?
Well, people would, because they just aren't as locked into the situation as
maybe
we are.
Maybe.
And Gus is a good dude, and you know how people just side with that. Like, people, yeah, that's how people operate.
Well, it was a Michael Lombardi. Michael Lombardi was very vocal. He was very vocal over a couple weeks around the Packer game, week 2, week 3. Really crushing Gus Bradley. I wonder, more people came to Rob Saleh's defense, and Saleh's been, what is he, 20-something and 50 as a head coach?
Yeah,
he's been
like the 3rd worst record in the NFL.
He has been a disaster as a coach. I wonder how many people would, but the discussion around this defense is maddening, because some of it, I can understand the injuries, but not knowing where you're supposed to be, the level of talent at some positions, specifically corner, and then the tackling issue that we've talked about, all 3 of those things are maddening conversations that we've been having for weeks around here.
I do think the firing of Bob Saleh yesterday by the Jets should be a reminder to Shane Steichen of, you're in charge of the total operation. You're not just the one side of the ball. If you look at the Jets statistically,
their defense is good.
Very good.
Very
defensively.
Good.
Not only this year, but in all the years that Saleh's been there. And again, I think it's harder to get the offense right than it is to get the defense right. So I think the Colts have the right side of the ball head coach when you think of that. But it's just a reminder of, don't ignore that unit. And, make sure that if you have to demand change, you do it. And if it takes you out of the offensive meeting rooms for a half hour in a given week, so be it. But don't let that baby be parented without any of your guidance, any of your approval. And again, I think Saleh obviously had difficulties with that offensively. Like, when I saw the news yesterday, I was like, wait, Nathaniel Hackett's still around?
Oh, he's still there.
And obviously the Zach Wilson thing was an abomination for the Jets. So that 2021 head coaching class, 7 hires, 2 remain. Dan Campbell, Nick Sirianni. The firings, Saleh, David Culley, the Texans.
I forgot about him, David Culley.
Arthur Smith.
Oh, man.
Brandon Staley, and then the 5th firing from the 2021 coaching cycle? Urban.
God bless Urban Meyer. He might be in Bloomington in a couple weeks, right?
Urban or Belichick to the Jets?
Belichick's not going to the Jets.
Why not?
He hates the Jets. He hates Woody Johnson.
Wasn't he there?
He wants a quarterback. There's no quarterback. He is going, Bill Belichick, in my estimation, is going to go to the Eagles, Cowboys, or I'll give you one off the board, the Cincinnati Bengals. How about that?
Whoa.
You like that?
Wow.
He's not going to go to
Tito and Belichick
like
back together in the same sort of area.
He's not going to some place with a bum quarterback. Everyone's like, he's going to the Giants. I'm like, he's not going to go to the Giants. They have no quarterback. He's not going to go to the Jets. You know, Aaron Rodgers is going to be out of there. By the way, Aaron Rodgers is going to be on McAfee today. Hope his nose doesn't grow with all the lies that he tells.
Rosie saw
like
Pinocchio the other day. It was a school play. She very much enjoyed.
Oh, that's so nice. So she knows if you lie, your nose grows, and that's a very bad thing.
Which, I think her nose is a little bit here on this Wednesday morning. One Pacer note, again, their preseason opener last night. We'll talk Colts a lot here coming up 8 o'clock hour. Again, high-octane offense for the Pacers last night. Pascal Siakam, very good. The starters played a half. No Miles Turner, knee contusion. No Isaiah Jackson. If you look at those two specifically, and, I pointed to James Wiseman earlier in the show of I like what Wiseman showed last night. And I think the Pacers took a very low-risk swing in bringing him in. Jackson has missed, I think it's over 30 games the last 2 years. Turner's missed over 20 games the last 2 years. Big guys and injuries, they're going to miss a week or two.
Plus, we don't know if Jackson's ready for this uptick
in
minutes.
Yeah.
It's worth asking.
I do want to give Jackson some credit because I thought playoff-wise he did give them some quality minutes. And trust me, I was a little confused right when they benched Jalen Smith at the start of the postseason. They really committed to Isaiah Jackson. And I thought he did a fine job. But, there are moments throughout the course of an 82-game season where you're going to need a third center to all of a sudden become either your starting center or your backup. Look at the Knicks and their depth last year and their kind of scramble mode they got into center-wise at some point. So I think that kind of adds to the, James Wiseman?
Sure. Not too bad.
Give him a chance. Hope that, the third wake-up call was there. He's been on two ends of the spectrum. Golden State was not at all ready to entertain playing young dudes, and he was injured. And then he went to the laughingstock of the NBA in Detroit. Well, now he comes to stable. And what does that provide for him? And what probably is his last real shot in the NBA. You'd like to think it's opened up his eyes a little bit. And again, I thought last night he gave the Pacers some nice minutes.
Well, I think on top of it, this is not going to help superstar-wise, but it's going to help filling out your roster and maybe getting some guys on the cheap and surprising some people. The Pacers are seemingly able to get guys that have not had success at their first places or second places. You think of Wiseman, you think of Obi Toppin specifically, and turn them into much better players, right? There is a market for that in the NBA. The guy that comes in as the 5th pick, it doesn't work out for whatever reason with that team. And a few years down the road, the Pacers get you. It's a fun offense. It's an open offense. They have a lot of different pieces, and maybe it works out. So that might be James Wiseman. Again, I just remember following his recruitment in Penny Hardaway, giving him all the money in high school.
I do remember that being weird.
Oh, goodness. Penny Hardaway's still employed there at Memphis. So, Pacers last night. When are they next in action here?
Thursday, right?
Thursday night. So, good stuff
no
there.
TV tomorrow night in Cleveland.
Unless you're watching the Russian feed, of course, which me and Mark Dighton will probably be doing. Coming up on the other end, he just wrote a piece on Alec Pierce, plus all of the Flacco Richardson stuff and all the stuff on Gus Bradley. Stephen Holder from ESPN, he joins us next. 8 o'clock hour, it's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Colts back to practice today. Again, week 6 is here. It'll be another 1 o'clocker on CBS. It'll be another Spiritas Adam Archuleta game. Slight favorite, the Colts, in this one as they head down to Nashville here in week 6. Let's head to the Payless Liquors hotline right now. You hear him every Wednesday with us, 8 o'clock from ESPN. He is Stephen Holder. And as always, we appreciate the time. Stephen, I want to start here. Andy and I mentioned it to open up the show, but certainly thinking about everybody in your home state, and I know you used to call Tampa home for several years. I've just traveled there on vacation a couple times, and not that I know what cities look like that are equipped to handle such a storm, but oh my, I fear for so many people in that general area right now, and just pray, frankly, that Milton lessens in strength and intensity a lot here in the next 12 hours.
Yeah, it's going to be some nerve-wracking couple of days this week. If you have lived in Florida, you've been through it. So I understand it. I lived through Andrew back in 1992. But our family didn't lose our house or anything like that. I mean, we were fortunate, had a lot of damage, but came out okay in the end. This here is a different kind of event, though, because my experience with hurricanes has been the wind, and that's the most terrifying part usually. This is potentially a bigger threat in terms of water. And I did live in Tampa for 8 years, and we never took a direct hit, never even had anything really a close call, really. And it hasn't happened, I think, for 100 years. And so that is why, for a lot of those people there, they've never experienced this, where a storm has come right down the pike, where the water gets pushed into the bay, and that water has to go somewhere. Tampa Bay is basically the bay itself is a huge bay, but the opening is small, so that water, when it gets pushed in there, it's just going to go into the streets and neighborhoods on the waterfront, and I don't know. It's not great. The last storm, Helene, was not even close to a direct hit on Tampa, and the flooding was substantial in the Tampa Bay area. So, that gives you an indication of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, the last couple weeks, just the images, Florida, North Carolina, and other states, Georgia, just been heartbreaking and absolutely unbelievable. So thoughts and prayers there. Stephen Holder, yeah. ESPN with us. No good way to transition to Gus Bradley's defense, Stephen. So I will apologize on the front end. But, obviously that's discussion number one. I guess general question for you to start things off. The most disappointing part of just everything defensively for the Colts right now is what in your mind? Well, I guess I would say the lack of pressure on quarterbacks for at least certainly on Sunday. And then I think a close second would be tackling, because no matter who's out there, I mean, you can tackle. Tackling is a want to and a technique thing to a large degree. Some players are better at tackling than others, and that's certainly part of being a good player. But anyway, I'll start with the pass rush. I think they're starting to feel the attrition. There's no question about that. Trevor Lawrence does throw the ball quickly. It's what he's known for. And the Colts have consistently had that challenge when they play him. But if you notice, this was a game where they had some big plays, and you have to sit in the pocket to be able to do that. So he was comfortable enough in the pocket to wait for those progressions and wait for those receivers to get open down the field. So that's the first thing. Again, as I said, the attrition is catching up to them. But, look, they have a first-round pick. There's certainly a lot of pressure on him right now. Latu, I don't think he's playing poorly. I just think that there's a lot – they're asking a lot of him right now, and he's going to get a lot of attention from offenses. So it's tough. Dayo Adengbo, he's got to make something happen without these other guys out there. So there's a lot of pressure on the guys remaining, but that's the NFL. That's what it is. You want the opportunity, then you got to make it happen. On the tackling, the linebackers, I mean, they have got to step up. I don't know how else to say it. The linebackers started off the season pretty disappointing, I thought, the first 2 weeks.
particularly that Green Bay game, I thought they rallied the last couple of weeks. This was a step in the other direction. So just the lack of consistency overall from that defense this year has been just unacceptable.
Yeah, I would argue, given the guys in that room, that might be my most disappointing position group of the year, linebacker-wise.
Yeah.
Just kind of where, expectations should be. It's different than the DB room, certainly entering the season. Again, Stephen Holder from ESPN with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Stephen, I want to throw at you a listener question. Riley emailed me this in the 7 o'clock hour. He goes, do we think Gus Bradley's defensive philosophy is Chris Ballard's philosophy? Therefore, Riley doesn't think things are going to change until Chris Ballard is theoretically gone. Do you kind of, I guess, agree with that, and that, this overall defensive approach, which honestly, you could make some cases it dates back to Matt Eberflus and that, awkward hiring with Josh McDaniels, that, maybe this is more of a Ballard philosophy than anything.
Well, that caller is 100% right. And here's how we know. Okay, there's actually a few things. So connecting some dots here. Chris Ballard, his formative years in the NFL, they were with Lovie Smith and the Chicago Bears and that defense, which was, very much a Tony Dungy type of scheme, zone almost exclusively, very light on the blitzing, almost never blitzed, frankly. And so you fast forward then to Matt Eberflus, same thing, 4-man front, zone defense. Not really going to send extra pressure. They're just really very low blitz rate. And when the McDaniels hire fell through, who was it that insisted that they kept Matt Eberflus? And this is not a knock on Matt Eberflus. I actually think Matt Eberflus should get more credit for the job that he did. I think we were probably too hard on him. I think he did fine. That defense was far more consistent than the one they currently have. So anyway, now Eberflus moves on. Who do they hire? They hire Gus Bradley. Not the exact same scheme, but philosophically very similar. Zone, 4-man front, not going to blitz. Definitely in terms of philosophy, along the same lines. And so I do think that Chris Ballard, and by the way, just to put a bow on that, when Frank Reich was dismissed and they hired Shane Steichen, again, who was it that was driving the idea that they keep Gus Bradley? That was Chris Ballard, right? And Shane Steichen went along with it because he has history with Gus Bradley from the Chargers. So I think Shane Steichen also philosophically has some agreement here, but Chris Ballard definitely does. There's no question. And it goes beyond Gus Bradley and really back to his, as I said, formative years in the NFL. Whether you think that's a bad thing, then, if you think that's a bad thing, I should say, then yes, then you probably aren't a big Chris Ballard fan right now. But I definitely think there's a relationship there. That caller, I think, is 100% right.
Stephen Holder with us, ESPN, ESPN.com. He joins us here on this Wednesday on the Wake Up Call Payless Liquors Hotline. Stephen, I know you wrote about it. I heard you on, I think with Jake and Jimmy, maybe it was JMV, I can't remember, kind of teasing a piece you were going to have on Alec Pierce. They got him the ball, but not until late in the game. What's the why behind that? Why do you think it sometimes takes them a while to get him involved, or maybe not involved much at all?
Yeah, so good point. That story actually posted just a little while ago this morning. So I'll tweet that out when we get off the line here. It is interesting. It's really fascinating, in fact, in kind of a perverse way that he's having all this success, and yet he's got 17 targets. He's fourth on the team in targets. The most stunning thing to me is that he's behind A.D. Mitchell in targets, which I cannot explain for the life of me. But anyway, I do think, to be serious, though, I do think there are some explanations for this, and I did get into them in the piece. Part of it is this. What they have Alec Pierce doing, whether it's all he can do or whether it's the only thing they're asking him to do, is a different question. But his role right now is generally he's going to be running deep routes. Well, you just those aren't available to you all day long. They're just not. One of the things that I discovered in writing this story is if you look at the coverage rates, not to get all like wonky and nerdy, but if you get into the next gen stats and you look at what coverages are the Colts facing, they're facing two deep safeties about 50% of the time, which I think is one of the highest rates of any team in the NFL. Why is that? Because Anthony Richardson, he stretches the field, and Alec Pierce obviously has a reputation now. He's going to beat you deep if you let him. So that is part of it. They're just not getting the looks, and Shane Steichen talked about that on Sunday. When you get that look, you have to take those shots. I mean, you just cannot not take the shot when Alec Pierce is having just this kind of remarkable success. He's leading the NFL in yards per catch, 28.3 yards per catch, which is just stratospheric. No player, I looked this up, no player in the past 15 years through 5 weeks has averaged more yards per catch. It's just stunning. So anyway, that's what's happening there. They've got to be able to take those shots as much as they can. And the other factor that I didn't mention is that they have to see if they can get him involved in different routes. I mean, there are other routes other than deep post. So let's see if they can figure that out. But obviously their preferences are to run those routes with Josh Downs and Michael Pittman Jr.
And Stephen Holder from ESPN with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Stephen, as we transition to the first practice of the week for the Colts, a gut feel on Anthony Richardson, a gut feel on Jonathan Taylor.
My gut feel on Richardson is that he does play. But I think after last week, and given how cautious they were and the fact that even though he felt better, it's still very painful and tough. I mean, because sometimes pain is a tolerance thing. It's that the pain impacts how you play. And so, Anthony, I talked to him after the game, and I got that impression from him that he would not have been the same player had he played. And that he agreed that, you know what, Joe Flacco should probably handle this one. So they were on the same page ultimately, even though he was disappointed in not getting to play. But I do think he was close enough that he could have played under dire circumstances. So I think the odds are good that he plays this week. Taylor is one I am less certain about. He really didn't do anything last week. So he's starting from scratch. And unless he can kind of get going here in the next day or two, you got to wonder if that thing's starting to linger. I don't know if they're going to have a hard time in this game, put it that way, without Jonathan Taylor. Tennessee, look, overall, not a great team. Okay, there's no question. But that defense, do not sell it short. It's actually pretty good. And they have actually given the Colts fits at times over the years. So don't sell that defense short, even though their offense certainly is not going to put up a lot of fireworks.
I say this I say this with a smile, and Stephen Holder with us. I say this with a smile, and also just the conversation between Anthony Richardson and Flacco. Flacco as a backup quarterback, is he too good, Stephen? He's too good out there.
I get what you're saying. I mean, I think he's one of the best backup quarterbacks out there. I would say that. Too good, look, I don't know if there's such a thing, but I guess there is. If your starting quarterback is playing really bad, then there is probably such a thing. But, look, we're not there yet, and I don't know that we will get there. I think, if your follow-up question, and I'm not saying it is, but if your follow-up question is, when and if and when does something have to change at quarterback, or does that thought even come into play? Obviously not now. No. I think it would have to get much, much worse, and Anthony Richardson would really have to – the turnovers would have to really be problematic. For Anthony, the big play potential is why he's in there. That's what is appealing with him. And, look, Joe Flacco did a great job, but the Jaguars' pass defense is awful, like awful. It's absolute trash. Number 32 out of 32. So I'm not trashing Joe Flacco here. All I'm saying is we got to keep that in perspective. Anthony Richardson's played some much tougher defenses and secondary. So I do think that plays a role in how you look at this too.
Stephen, as always, man, thank you for the time. Thinking about your home state a lot.
I appreciate that.
That's Stephen Holder right there, Payless Liquors hotline. Again, Colts first practice coming up later today.
Is Flacco too good?
Flacco is
he's just too good.
Tremendous backup. Steven's right. Jacksonville has been absolutely torched by every
But
quarterback.
he's too good. But he's too good to be a backup in a situation. Sometimes I'm like, you want your backup, maybe to not be able to throw for almost 400 yards.
He's
you
too good
Tommy
when
DeVito.
He's too good when your starter is supposed to be this, raw, project.
Right.
Always carries a negative stereotype, but he is a project.
I mean this, and I'm saying this with a smile. It's just a stupid Wednesday thing that I was thinking. We did this last year with Gardner Minshew, and this is when AR was done for the season. Should you trade Gardner Minshew? And then we listed all the teams, the Jets and all these other teams. What if the Browns, what would it take for the Cleveland Browns to come back to Kevin Bone and say, would you mind if we got Joe Flacco back for this season?
I would
give us a third-round pick.
I would tell them, purely from an entertainment standpoint, no, because I want Jameis Winston playing. I want pregame Jameis Winston speeches. I want 60 minutes of Jameis Winston football each week that I can watch.
Boy, I tell you what, you're seeing some owners in the NFL between the Jets owner and the owner there. I'm blanking on his name. He owns,
Haslam,
he owns all the gas stations, right?
Haslam?
Yeah, with the Cleveland Browns.
That's a W.
There's no way Stefanski's like, I got to run out Deshaun Watson again. I did love on Monday, was it Stephen A. Smith? Is like, this worked its way around the internet. Deshaun Watson is terrible. He should be arrested for being terrible. I'm like, well, maybe among other things, but yes.
I was going to say. So I thought Steve made a good point on the Alec Pierce front. With what Pierce has now proven, shown, and what Josh Downs, I think, has turned into on third down, the Colts are making opposing defenses have to make some decisions coverage-wise. How much attention are you going to give to Alec Pierce? Yeah, they don't throw it to him very often, but when they do, it is a big, big play. You going to respect that? You going to commit to it for 60 minutes? And then Downs on third down. I mean, how many times are we going to see Downs come in motion, the opposing defense put a linebacker on him, and then you might as well just single first down from there? And
it's easy.
Make sure you do it in a very, elementary manner so you don't get flagged for it.
Alec Pierce is the most confusing player on the Colts team.
He is he's a one-trick pony, and the one trick is so special and so coveted, and really it's rare.
Right.
I mean, I think he's proven now 3 years in the league he's not going to do a whole lot underneath.
Yeah,
that's just not going to be his game.
Listen,
he's not going to catch a bunch of contested balls in the 7 to 10 yard range. Okay, that's his game, but he brings the trait that everyone wants. I mean, everyone wants big plays, and that skill set is hard to find. And he is a great deep ball catcher. So, I guess 40 whatever pick he was, 42, 43, whenever he was taking the second round. Maybe you would want a little bit more of a well-rounded wideout, but having said that, he still is a very important asset to you. And again, you're making defenses now have to choose. Denard Wilson, this Titans defense has played very well this season. But as Brian Callahan pointed out earlier in the week, they haven't seen an offense that can create this big playability. And now, do you put a safety over Pierce for 50 snaps?
It's a
part
great
of me
question.
says yes, but then part of me is like, wait, you're going to target him 3 times a game?
I know.
That's a big commitment, okay?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with Downs? You going to put a linebacker on him on third down? He's going to torch that linebacker. So then if you put a DB, now that's another defensive back. Okay, what does that mean for Pittman? What does that mean for the run game as well? So the Colts, I think, are starting to create a little bit of conflict in opposing defenses, and I think it's been a while since they've been able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I just think Alec Pierce, like, he's not Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun, and I'm using him, the old Philadelphia Eagle who played with the Rams and another team or two. He's not that because, Deshaun Jackson could return kicks and punts, and you could use him in end arounds and, more crossing routes and stuff like that. I don't know who Alec Pierce reminds me of. He caught that ball, that second touchdown. The corner had I think it was number 31. He had the angle on Pierce, and Pierce ran by him. I mean, there's not 10 wide receivers in the NFL. There's not 15 wide receivers in the NFL that are doing that.
28 yards per catch. I don't know if we can properly put that into perspective. And unfortunately, it's week 6, so obviously that number's going to come down. But just to throw out a number, I think we'd consider T.Y. Hilton the big play receiver. His career high was 17 yards per catch.
Okay.
Now, again, T.Y. caught a lot more balls.
He did other things,
and of course, over the course of 16, 17 weeks, that number's going to change. But 28 yards per catch is just an astonishing eye-popping number.
Yeah, they need to take more shots. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
I think, I think you have to have 3 to 4 shots to Pierce a game because you're going to start to get DBs that panic. DBs that all of a sudden are like, oh, bleep, here it comes. And I know he's going to catch it because that's what Pierce does. I can't recall him flat out dropping a deep ball. And now you're going to force some DBs to make some decisions. And they start contacting you down the field like that. That can be a 40, 50-yard play on top of it. Scott Agnes to talk Pacers coming up here at the top of the hour. Their preseason opener. Andy Sweeney, go ahead of the morning check.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marion University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
All right, before we get to the Pacers, big day in Major League Baseball coming up. Let's start with the Colts. Beating the dead horse, that's what we've done all morning. The Gus Bradley stuff, he did meet with the media yesterday. We've talked a lot about tackling issues. Here's Gus Bradley yesterday on the Colts' lack of tackling Sunday against Jacksonville.
We make contact, but we're not finishing. We always say, you got to come up with a body part, come up with something, wrap up and drive for 5. I just don't think we're finishing like we need to, especially in space. Space tackling is where you're seeing some of the issues occur. Now, yeah, you're right. The long run, it was close quarter tackling, and we missed a bunch of tackles there too. So we just got to, play with good pad level and, keep driving for 5 and wrap up and somehow come up with a body part. And right now we're making contact, but we're not, making sure that they don't get any more after the initial contact.
Colts' first practice of the week coming up later today. We'll see if that injury news trends in a positive direction. Again, Jonathan Taylor still one. I think it's fair to have a question on. All right, last night
tackling fuel.
You get better at tackling fuel.
In Atlanta, it was Pacers and Hawks. The Pacers didn't, I guess for those that care about the final result, they didn't foul up 3 late, or they let the offensive rebound happen. Seth Lundy hits a 3. Starters played a half. Pascal Siakam, very good. Tyrese Halliburton, 3 of 7, 8 points, 4 assists. No Turner, no Isaiah Jackson. James Wiseman, I thought, gave them some quality minutes as that third center there. Second unit, not a lot to point to there. Pretty balanced. I thought Andrew Nembhard also played very well with the starters. So the Pacers back in action tomorrow night in Cleveland. Again, their home preseason games will be next week. It'll be the Grizzlies coming up on Monday. And then they'll close out their preseason next week. 2 weeks from tonight, their regular season opener.
All right, quickly, Major League Baseball, but we have a couple series that could be ending. One tonight. The Mets over the Phillies last night, 7-2. They lead that one 2-1, so the Phillies on the brink of elimination, as are the Dodgers and all that money, as they fell last night 6-5 to the Padres. Now, what does that set up today? 4 games in Major League Baseball. Tigers and Guardians tied at 1. That series at 3 o'clock. Phillies and Mets at 5 o'clock. Again, the Phillies lose, and they're going home. Yankees, Royals, that series tied at 1. That's at 7 o'clock, and then at 9 o'clock, Dodgers in San Diego. Dodgers on the brink of elimination. 4 games. You got a gut feeling on any of these 4 games?
I have none.
Okay, all right, well, fair enough.
I just hope for great drama.
I think I
had the Phillies winning it all, right? And now they're on the brink of elimination.
I think we all did. I think, and we'll take a break here, I think the Mets might be the 2007 New York Giants. Generic, bad, up and down, regular season, some big moments just to get into the postseason, and then they get in and they're beating teams that have been better than them all year long. All year long, the Phillies have been much better than them.
Indiana State product, Chaminade, outstanding last night. Thursday Night Football tomorrow night, 49ers, 3.5-point favorite on the road against Seattle.
Like you said, Scott Agnes coming up at 9 o'clock on the other end. A thought on Anthony Richardson, a positive thought on Anthony Richardson. We'll do it next. It's a Wednesday. Appreciate you hanging out with us. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, good Wednesday morning. Thank you for spending it with us, Kevin Bowe and Andy Sweeney, Mark Dykton, and the DriveHubler.com studio. Colts back to practice here in a little bit. Just to remind everyone, last week I would call Anthony Richardson very limited in the practice viewings that we had. So I don't think he was very close to playing. I know they listed him as doubtful, but he didn't even dress as the third quarterback. You know, sometimes you see guys that are a little banged up, they still dress as that emergency third quarterback. The Colts didn't even have him do that. And I think, Andy, before we get more into Richardson, it's worth going back to when we had Will Carroll on last week. And, again, the injury expert shared with us that originally it was thought to be a hip injury, and then injury report-wise, it was listed as an oblique. You saw it last night or 2 nights ago with Derek Carr.
Oh, yeah, he's going to miss multiple weeks.
Yeah, he's going to have an MRI, and he's going to miss multiple games due to an oblique injury. And you see that injury, I think, a lot in baseball. And guys can have a little bit of a bigger absence. But, again, Will Carroll shared with us the oblique a little bit more on the severe side than a hip injury.
What they're saying with an oblique and abdominal strain is tougher because you have to think about the function of what Anthony Richardson or any quarterback does. He has to be able to twist, especially on the throws. That guy has a big arm, and it's not just the arm. You have to think about the motion of throwing. You have to think about the fact that he's going to get hit, that he's got to be able to stay upright and have a good solid core. If his obliques and his abdominals have tears in them, that's going to be problematic, and that's not something that heals very quickly.
I guess my question listening to that is, I think my takeaway is I would rather it be not the oblique, right? I mean, listen, we don't want it to be more serious,
hip
but
greater than oblique, but it doesn't seem like this oblique strain is like uber severe.
No, not uber severe, but I mean, if he misses multiple games here, like again, the Colts got to be sitting there thinking, "Hey, we got to get you on the field. You got to practice. You got to play. You got to get better. I mean, we got to get you better. We can't go, 2 full seasons here where you're compromised." Do you think Anthony Richardson? This is just I thought of that listening to Carroll there. Do you think Anthony Richardson has the same? I don't know. The same injury bar as other quarterbacks in the NFL? Like, do you think if he's 90% he plays, does he have to be? And I know nobody's 100% in the NFL. I understand that rhetoric, but as much as you can be a month and change into the season, does he have to be 100%? I mean, if he's not feeling totally fine this week, but could play if it were a playoff game, does that mean they sit him this week? That's the question.
I think you need to live through that as an NFL quarterback. And by live through that, I mean play in the game. I think you have to experience that. But I will say this. A 90% Richardson is different than a 90% Flacco. Or just more of a stationary pocket passer. If you're going to say, man, guys, Phillip Rivers has got an ankle sprain. Okay, so his 6-second 40-yard dash time is now 6.5. Whoop-de-doo. Now with Richardson, the leg element is such a factor in his game that is a big, big change because you need a little bit of that. And it's not just the running ability of Richardson. I think Will Carroll hit on it right there. If he doesn't have the big ball, if he doesn't have the home run ability.
Well, think of the pass that we talked about for 3-4 days after to Houston. The Houston where he caught Pierce deep. Could he do that?
Well, that
with that oblique injury?
Or even the Ashton Dulin throw.
Sure.
I mean, some might say the Ashton Dulin throw, yes, obviously the Pierce one was incredible.
The Dulin throw might be his best
But the
pass
Dulin
of the
was
season.
just that frozen rope. So, again, if you're taking away that stuff, that's different. The limitations on, again, more of a stationary passer, a la Carr, which is interesting. Like, again, the oblique injury has already gone here. So if you're going to make me guess on a Wednesday, and, my tune certainly changed after watching Richardson last week. So, tease to stay tuned to tomorrow and Friday. But I would assume he's able to give it a go. It did look like he did a decent, somewhat high throttle workout Sunday before the game on that field. That was a wet field that rained a lot pregame. You would think if they had issues with him, being out there, that they wouldn't have put him out there, even for the pregame warm up there. So that one, and again, Kwity Paye, Kenny Moore, you would think those two guys, they've already missed 2 weeks. Can you get them back? If you thought their absence would be 4 weeks, they would have gone on IR. Ryan Kelly was at least doubtful for the game. Usually, if you're doubtful one week, you've got a better chance to play the following week. So those four, I feel like there's some optimism. Jonathan Taylor, though, I remain a little skeptical on.
Yeah, which I don't like. I want JT back on the field more than anyone. Do you know who the backup is in New Orleans, by the way? I had to look it up. I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah, they panned to the sideline on Monday night. So they have two. It's Jake Hayner, right?
Okay, yeah. Hayner's the
out
guy.
Of Fresno.
Okay, I have no idea. I don't remember him. I don't remember the name. I don't remember the face. To me, he looks like a player you make up in Madden when you're playing a long season and you've been playing for a decade. I have no idea who this guy is.
And then the other guy is the man that couldn't beat Notre Dame in a bowl game.
Spencer Rattler?
Couldn't beat him.
He's got a nice arm, and that's about it.
Notre Dame, South Carolina.
It's a 5-star recruit.
So you're telling me that the Saints don't have a McCown as their backup for the first time in 20 years?
They don't. They could also, they had Jameis for all those years. They could have Jameis Winston as well. Could I throw another question your way? And I don't know. I just got thinking about this. There's been negativity around. I don't know if it's negativity, but there has been some negativity. I'm trying to think of the exact word. Frustration, impatience, maybe, with Anthony Richardson, especially if you were to miss this game in Nashville on Sunday. I don't know. He got drafted here, and you knew he was going to basically be the starter, even though he had played precious little football compared to other guys, obviously, coming out of college. And I'm not totally saying it was given to him, but he was going to be the starter, and Gardner Minshew was not going to be the starter. And everything that has happened to him has made you question him. His play this season has made you question him short-term, long-term, and his injury history, no doubt, over the last year and a half has made you question him short-term, long-term. Is he injury-prone? There is a part of me that, we reach a breaking point where I wonder if criticism could be good for the athlete. I view Anthony Richardson. Stephen Holder was on yesterday with Jake. I think he mentioned it this week or last week. I'm trying to think which one. That that Anthony is very in tune, much like Tyrese Halliburton, is very much in tune to what people are saying. A couple weeks ago, he answered the questions of injury prone, and he knew that people were talking about whether or not locally and nationally if he was injury prone. I don't know. I guess there's a part of me that wonders, AR going through the injury, but also going through the questioning about his play. That's not something that he has had a lot of, and definitely not a lot of here. I wonder how he comes out on the other side of that. I wonder if...
Yeah, I think it's very mentally draining.
Yeah, I think it can be draining, but I wonder if he comes out better for it. And I don't know the answer to it. I'm just throwing that out there. I wonder if... not that he's not locked in. I don't want to make it sound like he's lazy or not working or anything like that, but I wonder if he could take it to a next level by people questioning him the most that they've questioned him in probably many years of his career. It's happened the last couple weeks, and I'm very interested on how he comes out on the other side, especially if he's healthy Sunday in Nashville.
Yeah.
Which I hope he is, by the way.
I think it's difficult because I think he hears that and he's already got enough on his plate, if that makes sense. He's already got enough on his plate of yeah, how's your footwork with your accuracy? Hey, are you ready for one of the best defenses in the NFL? I mean, that's what Tennessee's been so far this season. Again, they haven't really played anybody, but still, that's a lot for a 21-year-old quarterback that's barely started any game since high school. And now you're going to throw on there, are you injury prone? I think it's why, and I get it. There's a hair of a snippiness to him when he answers that question.
Oh, sure.
And I don't blame him.
I totally get it.
That question would piss me off.
It's his career.
Right. And so... there are other questions that he can acknowledge and he can say, okay, those are fair questions. But again, that injury one is just, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't know. That to me is just really mentally taxing more than anything.
Well, I would imagine it is. No, I mean, have an injury or be sick for 3 weeks and eventually you're going to get tired of it. I think that's where Anthony is. I just wonder if there is a extra, hey, I'm locked in. It's go time, right? People are questioning me now more so than in high school, at Florida, and my first year because I got injured so early in the season for the Colts last year. So it's a conversation definitely worth having. Again, coming up in 20 minutes, Scott Agnes will join us on the other side. Jim Irsay responds to Bill Belichick. We'll give you the sound.
What year is it?
We'll give you the tweet. We'll do it next. Wake up call here on this Wednesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
How the Pacers look in their preseason opener? We'll talk about that with Scott Agnes coming up in 15. The Colts will see a former Colts legend coming up on Sunday in Nashville.
Oh, I like that.
A Colts legend.
You want to tease that to the 9 o'clock hour? Or do you want to tell us who it's going to be?
The Titans coaching staff.
Okay.
Again, Brian Callahan, their new head coach, coming over from Cincinnati, of course.
Right.
Again, one that the Colts liked very much in their head coaching search a couple of cycles ago, or a couple of years ago, I should say.
Big Tom Callahan's son. Come on, you know that reference. Come on.
I was going to say, isn't his dad the offensive line coach there?
It's Tommy Boy. Yeah, that's just the reference. Go ahead. Who is it?
Colt Anderson, the special teams coordinator in Tennessee. He was the quarterback on the fake punt.
Oh, that's a good one. Boy, that's a really good one. Okay.
The play that Chuck Pagano said, when they run me out of town, they'll play that play on a loop. It was Griff Whalen as the center and Colt Anderson as the quarterback.
Poor Colt Anderson was set up for failure, was he not? Feel bad for that guy.
He took the snap, right? I mean,
he set up for failure. All those guys were.
Tackle for loss by several Patriots on that play. So that's your special teams coordinator in Tennessee, Colt Anderson.
Perfect leeway into this. So, Mark, let's play this sound. We should have played this yesterday. So this is from the Manning cast. They had Belichick on, and there's a part of me that really likes Belichick in the media, which I want to get to you guys because I know that's killing Colts fans. But I want to get to that. So Belichick was talking about crowd noise. I'm sure if you're a Colts fan, you've heard this by now. So you'll hear Peyton, and then obviously here's Bill Belichick talking about the Colts back in the day, piping in crowd noise there at a home game in the Dome. Go ahead.
With this crowd noise, Bill, how do you simulate the crowd noise when you're playing these guys?
Well, I'll tell you, Peyton, the crowd noise there at Arrowhead wasn't as bad as it was when you guys piped in music at the RCA Dome.
Okay.
And then when the music skipped, and then when the crowd noise skipped, then that's how we knew we were pumping it in.
I love that, Manny. Manning's like, oh, okay, and laughing, and Bill's like, I'm not done yet. I want to talk about the skipping of the music. So yesterday, Jim Irsay in the afternoon, he tweeted out, reminder, piped in crowd noise is a myth. 1,000% fictional. And the skip was a TV broadcast. We get it, though. Visiting teams couldn't believe that 60,000 in an intimate domed stadium could make much deafening noise. A credit to Colts fans. So how about that?
Oh, man. Jim, can we get some thoughts on your defense? I care more about that than
I care more about Gus Bradley
20 years ago piped in noise at the RCA Dome.
You know
was that a Pete Ward tweet or was that a Jim Irsay tweet?
Oh, I believe almost nothing is coming from Jim Irsay. I mean, right? He's not tweeting. He's not tweeting that
10%
out.
10% he sends out?
Yeah, I would say that's probably right. Now, he might have some direction. Hey, I want to get this statement out or that statement out. You know what I kind of love, and I guess Ronnie Harrison has been a part of this, but Bill Belichick, for Colts fans, he is a face of evil, the evil empire,
1,000%.
okay?
Yeah.
Do you guys like or dislike him on television? The reason I bring it up and I smile, for years, I have had to deal with every single Dallas Cowboy getting a TV job of some way. Troy Aikman, now he's on ESPN for years. He always had the 425 game on Fox. I got Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett, his face just doesn't move on television.
He stinks.
I've had to deal with Garrett. I've had to deal with Emmitt Smith. I have to deal with Michael Irvin.
Well, how about Witten?
Yeah, Jason Witten stunk.
Jason Witten immediately got ushered to the front of the line. A guy that
I won't stand for the Aikman slander, though. I think Aikman's good.
Oh, listen, Aikman, but you have to understand, I watched so many Giant Cowboys games with Aikman on the call. I can't watch that and not think, well, is he slighting my team? And by the way, he should slight my team. They've stunk in that game for many, many years. But now Colts fans are having to deal with this more so than like Ronnie Harrison, okay? You're having to deal with the face of evil who kept you out of a Super Bowl or two, kept you out of maybe another championship here in Indianapolis for all those years having Tom Brady and Bill Belichick.
And he's chummy with Peyton.
Oh, and he's
on Monday
chummy.
nights.
Peyton's paying him. Manning Productions, Omaha Productions, they're paying Bill Belichick.
You don't like Belichick to the Jets?
Oh, I mean, do you remember when Parcells and Belichick had the two bills that was on the 30 for 30 for ESPN?
Oh, yeah.
Remember when they did all the stuff with the Giants and then they came down the elevator and they're like, now we're going to the other side?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not going. He's like, I'm not going to go. I don't wear green. I'm not going to go. I don't think so. I think he hates them.
Does Belichick coach in the NFL again?
I don't think he does.
Yeah.
Now, this year is going to be the test.
Because it was just Atlanta, right?
Yeah,
they were the only ones.
I mean, if you think about it, this season, you're going to have Jets with an opening, potentially the Giants, potentially the Cowboys, potentially the Eagles. A lot of NFC East. If the Bengals don't make it again, if they implode,
Jacksonville,
could you have one there? Could you have one in Jacksonville? Could you have one in Chicago? So there are 6-7 teams, and there's 6-7 teams that are much better options if you're trying to win than just Atlanta last year. But boy, if you're Belichick, you have failed so much at finding a quarterback after Tom Brady. It's not easy. I understand. Don't you think he goes somewhere where he doesn't have to worry about the quarterback position? And with the Jets, that's all you would do was worry about the quarterback position, right?
Now, hear me out on this.
Okay, let's go.
Robert Saleh fired yesterday by the Jets. Again, if the Jets win on Monday night, they're leading the AFC East. Unbelievable. Nothing says Jets more than that. A few years back, I seem to recall the Colts, in a large way, you could call it a scapegoat, they fired Marcus Brady, their offensive coordinator, the great hooper, the great pickup basketball player, Marcus Brady. They fire him, and then, sure enough, a month later, he pops up in Philly as an offensive analyst with Nick Sirianni. Could Bob Saleh all of a sudden say, well, Gus Bradley largely brought me into some situations in Seattle and Jacksonville. He was a Gus Bradley assistant. Should Shane Steichen say, hey, let's bring him in here as a defensive analyst? And Gus is like, well, yeah, are you sure about that?
Well, does it matter what Shane Steichen thinks? What does Chris Ballard think about bringing in Bob Saleh?
Touche.
I'm a yes. Listen, defense.
I don't Bob Saleh saying, do you know how much I just got for a buyout?
Yeah.
You know where I'm going to be?
Rob Saleh's going somewhere warm with the beach, I would imagine, for a little bit. Maybe not.
Him and Gus Bradley very close, is, in all seriousness, is what I'm getting at. And obviously, I don't think that would happen, but that would be something, I don't know.
Saleh
is be interesting.
Here's what I think of Saleh. I think Saleh is going to have a Brian Flores type imprint on a team next year,
which is high praise.
He's not going to be a head coach. He's going to be a defensive coordinator. And by the way, people always say that like it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I mean, that might be his lane. And maybe
Steve Spagnuolo obviously had a great run.
Maybe in a couple years, I think Spag should be a Hall of Famer. I think in a couple years, maybe his name resurfaces. He went to the Jets. They had to rebuild. The GM whiffed on a quarterback, and then all the Aaron Rodgers nonsense, which, by the way, I think the majority of people, especially as time goes, and Mark, you'll like this, I think they'll side with Saleh over Aaron Rodgers. I think everyone's dumping on Aaron Rodgers much more than Saleh. So I think he could get a second shot. But, listen, I mean, if you're a team that needs a defensive coordinator, I mean, good God, I think Saleh is right. I think he is going to have, if he came to the Colts next year, I think he would be a national talking point on what he could do with anyone's defense, including the Colts. And I think people would talk maybe a little bit about him like Flores. Last thing on Saleh, what did you make of the reports that came out with that I guess security escorted him out of the building, that he didn't get to say, bye to coaches or have a final team meeting or anything? It was a day off for the players, right? It's a Tuesday in the NFL. So they had the day off. He showed up, and they ushered him out of the complex with supposedly with security flanking him, so he didn't do anything on the way out.
He's probably still jet-lagged from London. He probably didn't have to do too much.
Just punching pictures as he heads out.
Well, I want to be hot-takey about that, but it's like
MFing Rodgers as he walks out of there.
I want to be.
Should they have fired him before they got on the plane in London? And maybe he could have stayed over in Europe if he'd like.
You mean leave him on the tarmac like Lane Kiffin was years ago?
Right, to be fired after the London game.
Do you know the other two? Because I have this. If you don't, hang on. Let's see if I can find it. Do you know the other two?
I saw it briefly, but no.
2014, Dennis Allen with the Raiders.
I was going to say Dick Duran, but yeah, Dennis Allen.
That's a great name, but it's not Dick Duran. 2015, the Dolphins when they fired Joe Philbin.
He used to live right here.
When they fired Joe Philbin. So those are the two.
Hey, Colts Jets Sunday Night Football.
Well, you know who plays
the lone primetime game for the Colts this season, November 17th.
I will say this:
that game's gonna get flexed. I have a feeling
they're gonna flex. They
don't
can't flex
say that.
The Jets out of prime time.
I mean, if they keep going down the toilet, they will.
No, but here's the thing: they won't.
That's the thing.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and they're also 2-3. I mean,
they're not going to be bad enough to be stinky, and them being stinky is still a big story in the NFL. It is. The Pacers last night, what did we see? What did he see? The he is Scott Agnes. He joins us next. 9 o'clock hour coming up. Wake up call on this Hump Day Wednesday on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
9 o'clock hour here on a Wednesday. Again, I'll be out at Colts practice here coming up later today. Certainly some injuries to note. See about Anthony Richardson. Is he a little bit more? I assume he'll probably still be listed as limited, but does he actually do more than he did last week? Something to keep an eye on. Also, one open roster spot for them. They had 2 open roster spots as of yesterday. Just one now. We'll share who filled that other roster spot here coming up in a bit. But right now, let's head to the Payless Liquors hotline. We are recapping a Pacers basketball game. Granted, the preseason side of it with Scott Agnes. He joins us here. You see his work, Fieldhouse Files. Scott, good morning to you. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning.
Any grand takeaways from last night? Starters play a half. Siakam, very good. Nembhard, very good. Outside of that, I don't know if anything stood out to me massively, but how about for yourself?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so far, the player that has jumped out most in camp and everything to me is Andrew Nemhard coming off his off season with Team Canada. But for last night's game specifically, I'd also add Colts Slider in there. What he was able to do, come in off the bench, knock down a couple of threes, have no hesitation, shoot more shots than anyone on the team, and make several hustle plays. That stood out to me for a guy that still has to earn his roster spot.
Scott Agnes with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Let's go to the front court. Let's go to centers. Listen, I know Isaiah Jackson did not play last night, so I'm not supposed to ask you two questions, but you're smart enough. You can do it. Are you ready for this? Is Isaiah Jackson ready?
The classic journalism question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is Isaiah Jackson ready for the uptick in minutes? And then, I thought James Wiseman, I thought he was nice. I think James Wiseman, how much do you think he can give them this season?
Yeah, for Isaiah, he better be. We didn't see him in Fan Jam, didn't see him in this first preseason game, but he's going to be asked to be that take over that backup center spot, probably play 20 minutes, 25 minutes per game, I would think. Going into this season, he's in the final year of his rookie deal. In the center position for all the positions that are kind of set, that they have guys locked into not just multiple years, but some 3, 4, and 5 years. Center is the spot that is not that case, both with Jackson and then Miles being in a contract year. And you guys have gone over at length that you can't do anything with Miles just yet, but that's just the current circumstances. And then with James Wiseman, so far he's done more than I expected. I think the key with him is, one, reset your expectations to what you believe he can do and what you're asking of him. I think they're trying to make it simplistic in what they're also demanding of him on the floor. And KB, to go back maybe to your first question, what stood out, it was how Wiseman was oftentimes the first guy down the floor. That jumped out to me. Agree. New guy on the roster. What are they asking of him? Run the floor, rebound, which he did quite well, put it back up there, and impact shots. Now, the defense all around was troublesome. I think Rick would tell you that, with a total of 261 in that game. But Wiseman has been solid, I think, in the first two times we've been able to see them play competitive action.
Yeah, they yes, I would agree with that on the Wiseman front of it. I don't know, and again, Scott Agnes, Fieldhouse Files with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. NFL preseason schedule, Scott, it's usually like you play your starters a little bit week 1, maybe a little bit more week 2, and then like the dress rehearsals week 3. It was different when they had a 4-game preseason slate. Does the NBA follow any sort of pattern? Again, the Pacers played last night. They'll play tomorrow and then 2 next week. Like, is there a dress rehearsal? Hey, we'll see the starters go maybe even into the fourth quarter at any point here in the preseason, or how does it typically unfold?
I don't think there's a consensus in the NBA, KB. Maybe in large part because there's just all these different philosophies. A couple teams all go overseas, and that directly impacts what you do. But some teams you'll see maybe take the first couple games seriously and then use the latter few games to play everybody. We obviously saw the Pacers go the other way with that. And I tend to think it'll probably be that way for the Pacers, meaning because I like the fact that they come home for their final 2 preseason games after getting 2 on the road in a row, which leads to some team bonding. Then they have a week until the home opener. So it's not as if you need some rest or anything coming off of that. So I really like the rhythm of the Pacers training camp. But I don't think there's any set thing because all these coaches handle it also differently.
Scott Agnes, Fieldhouse Files. We're talking Pacers, obviously, in action last night. Back at it preseason-wise on Thursday. The ceiling for this defense, what do you think it can be this season, and how quickly do you think we can get to that?
Yeah, so it's a case here where it's, let's be realistic. It's in the top 5 defense, probably not top 10. The number I've kind of put it at is around 18. And they get to like 18th, and I think they finished 24th last season, although that was from the full season, and we all remember how awful they were in that first month and a half. If you can finish in that 15 to 18 range, what I look at last year is a team like Dallas, really good offensively, mediocre defensively, but just good enough. The trouble, I think, is if you're finishing 22nd or 24th or 26th, you're just giving up way too many points. You just haven't put it as your defense just isn't good enough to compete at that elite level. So I think 18th is what I'm shooting for them, Andy.
Again, Scott Agnes with us. His work, Fieldhouse Files. 2 weeks from tonight, Pacers will open up the regular season in
that's crazy, right?
In Detroit. I know.
Let's go.
It is crazy. You kind of sniffed this out a little bit here, Scott. You thought something could be happening maybe at Media Day in regards to Tyrese Halliburton in a shoe deal. I had no idea that Puma was even really in the NBA market. Shows you how little I know, I guess. But could you share us more on Tyrese Halliburton and this deal that was announced yesterday?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that, some of the pictures that were coming out of Media Day, was Tyrese taking photos, but the first layer of his sock was rolled down. Well, anyone that knows these NBA socks, there's a Nike sign. Several players have done that in the past. I think Steph Curry, for example, who's an Under Armour athlete, will often do that. So I was just curious why. You knew he was a sneaker free agent. And then there was also one moment I saw where in the media interview room where Tyrese put his right leg on the table briefly. We're talking 10, 20 seconds. And it revealed, a dress shoe that he often wears, not his basketball shoes. And what stood out to me there, too, was he loves his sneakers. This dude's big on fashion, big on shoes, big on his player-exclusive Nike shoes, especially that we saw coming off the Olympics. You would think almost maybe he would have worn one of those or whatever. Anyways, it came out yesterday. He's officially signing with Puma Hoops, joining Scoot Henderson's a part of that group, LaMelo Ball, Breanna Stewart, Indiana's own Jackie Young. It's a smaller group, but and he's going to be one of the key players there with Puma Hoops. They wouldn't confirm whether he'll get a signature shoe to me or not, but it seems like that's probably the direction.
He has to.
Yeah,
he
normally
has to.
That's the direction it's headed, and that's one of the big incentives. There's obviously money's the motivating factor, but a lot of players will go to these. I don't want to say secondary brand because overseas, Puma's probably one of the best, right? Like Adidas, I think it's bigger even over there, this German-based company. So this is just a change-up, and I always like little things like that. And I'm very curious with all these shoe changes and signature shoes, how much I always try to understand has that led to more injuries or anything like that? There's no great way to track it, but guys change shoes so often. But they do have their own orthotics. They usually switch in and out. But nonetheless, it was a big moment for Tyrese. And the even cooler part about it was filmed at Lebanon's old Memory Hall gym. They're over there, which Rick Mount played in, and we saw in Hoosiers from several different games there.
Yeah, another bag, as the kids would say, Scott, for Tyrese Halliburton. It's been a good couple years for Tyrese Halliburton in the old wallet. Scott Agnes, Fieldhouse Files. Yeah, I looked it up. The preseason game last night, 45 fouls were called in the game. A couple weeks ago, Coach Carlisle came on with us and says, hey, expect a more physical, which I thought would mean maybe less fouls, a more physical NBA product this season. Did you see anything last night that maybe led you to believe that it was more physical? Again, it's one preseason game. Who knows how much you can take from it?
Yeah, and it's reserves. And remember, too, the officials have their brains running wild because they have all these new rules and YouTube videos and off-season sessions that, by the way, they took part in as well. Nothing. There was probably a couple sequences that stood out. There was a couple things that I didn't quite understand that I wanted to watch back today. Like there was an early foul that I thought perhaps could have been a take foul and little things like that. But no, nothing overwhelmingly that was like, yep, you can totally see they're trying to do this.
Again, Scott Agnes with us here, Fieldhouse Files. Scott, you were over yesterday at the, the reintroductory press conference for Kelly Crosscroft with the Fever. Could you walk through the hierarchy now? Okay, Lindon is moving into, I forget her exact title, senior consultant. Senior advisor, thank you, on that end. And then they hired Amber Cox as the new GM. So Kelly Crosscroft is in charge of the roster. Amber Cox in charge of the roster. Who's making the decision on Christie's side? I'm a little confused on the exact hierarchy.
Yeah, I kind of view it like the Pacers, if you want to think of it that way, where Kelly's the ultimate say. It's Kevin Pritchard. It's Amber Cox secondarily helping with everything, also influential, also making some decisions. but it's still Kelly's show. She's the one that hired her, which is on the other side, Chad Buchanan, much like you have Larry Bird maybe on the Pacers as an advisor, or Donnie Walsh finished out his career. That's what Lynn Dunn will move into with this outgoing role. She's one that's never going to quit basketball. She's always going to be around, whether it's here or somewhere else with one of her other basketball friends. So those are your two hierarchy. Below that, you have an assistant GM, Hillary Spears, which that was Kelly's role over with the Pacers. And then from there, you have the coaching staff. And there was nothing the overwhelming takeaway, perhaps, from this, Kevin, was one, Kelly's really trying to not just build a winner, but build something for the long haul here. I thought it was notable. She mentioned how she wanted them to become an enduring brand, kind of like an Apple or something, which suggests, hey, this can be something much bigger than just Caitlin, than just the Fever and all that. I think she made her feelings on Kelsey Mitchell very clear. Same way probably with Melissa Smith and that going forward. I thought it was also notable that didn't purposely try to single out Caitlin Clark a ton in terms of, going out and saying, hey, look what we have here, an incredible player, a Hall of Fame type player here. We have to do everything we can to maximize the window. No, it was instead more so we have these foundational pieces in place with Kelsey potentially, and then Aaliyah and Caitlin. Now it's on us to fill in the spots around them to build a championship team.
Yeah, it seems like all the Kelsey Mitchell talk is very reminiscent of Pascal Siakam with the Pacers, and now it's just let's just make sure Mitchell agrees with all of that.
I think similarly, although I think it's very realistic, and I don't blame her or anyone, is this will be the first time she'll be a free agent, and she wants to consider her options. Though I will say here in all this,
can the Fever offer more money than other teams, or is that not a rule in the WNBA?
What the Fever have, in simplistic forms, is they have the franchise tag. It's called the core. They can core her. But you never want to bring back an unhappy player, right? But with that said, it's very unlikely that she is gone, because the Fever have that ability at their disposal to keep her as well. And they keep talking about this backcourt for years to come. They want to see with Caitlin and with Kelsey together. You have Aaliyah inside, and then you just want to fill out the rest of the roster with some experience, with some vets, something that was sorely missed this year.
Scott Agnes, his work, Fieldhouse Files, 2 weeks from tonight. As Scott said, it's pretty wild to think Pacers-Pistons will kick off the regular season. Scott, great stuff as always, man. Hope all is well.
All right, you too. Thanks, guys.
Scott Agnes, Payless Liquors Hotline.
We going to get Jaden Ivey versus Benedict Matherin in Game 1? I mean, that's a good one. That's a good one to get Ben Matherin going in Game 1, isn't it?
Juicy moment in the Rising Stars game.
That's not an easier way in if you're Benedict Matherin. There's a guy that's going to be talking junk to you over there. I like that.
I think this is a big year for Jaden Ivey's NBA career.
Yeah.
He's kind of reached that point.
Yeah.
From an NBA standpoint. Yeah, I would think this is kind of a big year for him. Trace Jackson-Davis obviously had a great rookie year. I was trying to think of some of the other Indiana-related players.
I'm blanking on the guy last year who's on the Heat. We talked about him earlier. Help me here.
Khalil Ware.
Yeah, Khalil Ware's going to have I think he's going to have a nice year.
I was going like guys that have been in the league. Jalen Hood-Schifino, of course, didn't really play much at all, and back injury in L.A. What does that look like with that roster there? So, again, 2 weeks from tonight, and remember, the home opener is such an awkward start time. That's that Sunday matinee with the Sixers. Same day as Colts at Texans. It's a 3:30 tip.
I'm looking at it.
At Gamebridge. So, again, 2 weeks from tonight, the 23rd, Pacers at Pistons. The 25th is a great Friday night game. Pacers at Knicks.
Oh, yeah, it's a big game.
Juicy. And
it's a big game. It's an ESPN game.
The home opener is October 27th at 3:30.
Is Embiid already injured for that game? Come on, I'm kidding. Settle down. We maintenance on Embiid.
I thought you usually make the Knicks injury joke.
Well,
you going Embiid?
They got rid of Julius Randle. They have Karl Anthony Towns now.
They still got OG Anunoby.
Well, that's a great point. Is OG Anunoby in the lineup for the second game of the year? It's a great point.
I saw he played in one of their preseason games.
Did he really?
So far.
Okay.
Again, one open roster spot for the Colts.
Where do they go? What do you think?
Well, it's kind of weird that they haven't filled it by Wednesday. I think it's the first Wednesday all year that they have. Again, they had two at the start of the week. Will Fry's on injured reserve, and then they waived Dallas Flowers. So they brought up David Long Jr., who is a corner from the practice squad. 12 career starts for him in 6 years in the league. 5'11" corner, so certainly on the shorter side of Colts corners. I am interested, do we see the return of Kenny Moore? Because I think I said this to you on Monday before Dallas Flowers was waived. I'm kind of ready to see Samuel Womack the whole time and no more Dallas Flowers.
I would agree.
Flowers wasn't playing a ton.
Right.
15 snaps-ish per game.
Womack's been a good find for them. He has.
Right now, do you try a three-corner grouping of Jalen Jones, of course, Kenny Moore, and Samuel Womack?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Is that the route you go? So one extra roster spot, I wouldn't mind seeing them churn running back a little bit.
Well, did they bring in, what's his name, Penix?
Well, they brought him back to the practice squad.
Back to the practice squad.
That is a position that I wouldn't mind seeing. Again, with Will Fries on IR, I still think they have enough offensive linemen. Do they go with Dalton Tucker, the undrafted free agent who we saw come in the game on Sunday? He's a big dude, 6'6", 307. I mean, that's a big guard in the NFL. Is that something that you see there? So I'll be interested to see how they handle it. Again, depth in the secondary, of course, is an issue, but running back. And I don't know, maybe linebacker? Those are kind of some areas that I'm looking at.
Yeah, listen, if JT doesn't play, and I don't like the fact that it doesn't seem like there's a lot of optimism around Jonathan Taylor. I am very much I need to see Jonathan Taylor. Listen, I know with Joe Flacco, if he has to play or if Anthony Richardson is maybe hobbled a little bit, that, your running game from the quarterback position isn't going to be great. But for me, I think Jonathan Taylor, he's going to do things that inherently Trey Sermon and Goodson can't do. And listen, I thought Goodson ran hard. I thought Goodson should get a little bit more run if Jonathan Taylor is out. We usually don't bring up these articles. I was just scanning around last night. CBS Sports does this. I mean, everyone does this. If you could make a trade for one team, and trades in the NFL just rarely happen. And they said for the Colts, I forget who wrote it. I don't think it was your boy Pete Prisco. That the Colts could trade Mo Alley Cox to the Eagles, and a trade back would be Alexander Madison from the Raiders at running back. Does that do anything for you? Madison has got a nice amount of run this year. I need to look up his stats, but remember, they've been just brutal at running the football. They have Zamir White, if you remember him. They let Josh Jacobs go.
So a three-team trade?
Well, it's all fake. If you could do a trade for your team, what would it be? And for the Eagles, it was getting another tight end. Go get Mo Alley Cox. I just can't imagine he would help them. Madison, he's got a couple touchdowns and 125 yards in the season. The Raiders have been pitiful running.
I don't see the Colts, and I get Alley Cox a free agent. I just don't see him parting ways. Blocking-wise, I think that's a reason why Kylan Granson doesn't play more. That's a reason why Will Mallory, hasn't played a little bit more. So I can't see
the Eagles giving up in this trade?
Well, it doesn't have that. It's all fake.
Oh,
it's all fantasy football stuff, Mark. It's not real. It's like if you could just make a trade, what would you get from Mo Alley Cox? Nothing. You would get nothing from Mo Alley Cox. You'd get a 7th round.
It's not real, Mark.
It's not real. Yeah.
Don't tell me it's not real.
It's fantasy football.
I am reminded in a week like this that, you go back to roster cut downs. They kept Dallas Flowers over Darrell Baker Jr. They cut Baker Jr. when they claimed Womack, I think, actually. I could have that wrong, but I feel like that was there. And it was like, man, you kept 20 guys in the trenches, and you cut a corner. And,
I don't know.
Think about how many corners they've brought in now in the first 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And a guy that,
I don't know.
Definitely didn't play good for you last year, but I thought actually had a decent camp this year. And, maybe was making some strides. And I thought he looked better than Flowers, frankly, during training camp.
Where did he go?
He's with Tennessee.
He's with Tennessee.
That's why I bring it up.
Of course he is. Yeah.
I was reminded of that when I was scanning through their roster this week of, again, 20 dudes in the trenches versus a position of certainly, I think, immense need around the NFL. Corners, I think, are very, very coveted. So, on the list of head-scratching things from the Colts.
I guess the flip side of that would be, good thing he kept some of the trench guys, given that offensive line has been a little beat up and the defensive line is decimated at this point. Man, the Titans' defense is no joke. Now, I've only seen them play twice, and one of those games was against the Dolphins. who have a terrible offense right now.
Do you want to list out the quarterbacks they faced?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it hasn't been good. They have faced, if I'm not mistaken, they faced Jordan Love.
No. That was Willis, right?
Oh, was it? It was Willis. Yes, they faced Willis, Caleb Williams, his first game. The Jets and Aaron Rodgers, his second game back. Malik Willis, and then Scoop Huntley.
I mean, collectively, that's probably the worst quartet of quarterbacks any team's faced all season.
You think so? Yeah.
I mean, Caleb Williams' first ever game.
Right.
Then Aaron Rodgers and the Jets.
Yeah.
Malik Willis and Scoop Huntley.
Are they still caring about the Titans there, or is it still Vanderbilt? Is it all Vandy?
No, it's all Vandy.
Have they? I did see they took the goalpost out of the river there. They took it out of the lake. And they're going to
build a memorial.
They're gonna chop it up and I guess sell it to Vanderbilt boosters.
Look at that! That's perfect for the NIL.
Hey, listen, there you go.
Diego's going to get a nice little
back in the pot.
Check there.
What's his name? What's his last name? Vada. What's his last name? I can't remember.
I started with a P.
Pavia
or something.
I can't remember. My iPad died on me. By the way, it's about time for a new iPad. So that might be happening sooner rather than later. He put on Twitter 2 days ago for all NIL opportunities. Call my agent, and then just put the agent's number out there.
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
Call my agent for NIL.
What bad could happen from that?
I was going to say. You imagine the prank calls his agent's probably getting on that end. All right, in a few, we'll do a little I Gotta Know with Mark Dykton, but let's go ahead and check it down.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marian University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
All right, before we get to the Pacers and before we get to a big night and a big day coming up in Major League Baseball, Gus Bradley, defensive coordinator there with the Colts, he talked to the media yesterday, and for Gus, he still believes in this defense.
I think it starts with our players. We believe in our players, and we know that, that we can get it done and we can keep these points down. And that's our whole objective. I mean, are you going to eliminate explosive plays, keep the points down, give your offense a chance to get the ball many times and score some points? And we have faith in our group. We have faith in our coaching staff that we can get it done.
And I would say some pretty damning Gus Bradley evidence we shared kind of in that 7:30 segment. If you want to check that out, that is available on the podcast. All right, last night in Atlanta, the Pacers preseason opener, starters played a half, so about 15, 16 minutes. That was James Wiseman starting with the other four, Siakam, Nesmith, Nembhard, Halliburton. No Miles Turner, no Isaiah Jackson last night. I thought very good from Nembhard and Siakam. I thought Wiseman gave him some quality minutes as we chatted with Scott Agnes about bench play. I don't think anything too alarming one way or the other. Generally, I think the defense was probably not where you would want it to be. But I thought Mathurin and Walker had a slow start, but I thought had some better moments as the game moved along. Mathurin didn't shoot it great, but again, facilitating, I think you see a couple assists, and those are signs you want to see from him. Cole Swider, if you're looking for a little bit of an unknown guy that had a nice night, he's competing for potentially that final roster spot. He had a few moments. No Johnny Furphy either. Ankle issues with him. So tomorrow night, Pacers, Cavs, 7 o'clock in Cleveland. No TV outside of illegal Russian bots.
Which me and Mark, just go ahead and email Mark Dykton or DM him.
I am starting to
give
learn
you all the streams.
A second language, and it is Russian because of that.
We're like, me and Mark are like basically Rick Carlisle. He taught himself on YouTube how to play piano and everything. Mm-hmm. We're teaching ourselves foreign languages by going to the Russian streams and
that
whatever.
Might be the most absurd analogy I've ever heard.
It really
Rick
is.
Carlisle might never come on the show again hearing you compare yourselves.
Well, I hope he's busy. I don't know. He's traveling back from Atlanta.
Would you like to buy a Cuban cigar? No, thank you. I just want to watch the game. Pretty ladies in your area, click here. Okay, thank you.
It's so funny you say that. I'm on ESPN.com, and the first thing is, the ads they have at the bottom, 17 women from the 1990s that everyone had a crush on.
Oh, that's 100% a click.
Of course it is. Major League Baseball, 7-2. Mets over the Phillies. Phillies on the brink of elimination. They'll play today. We'll get to that in a second. Padres 6-5 over the Dodgers. The Dodgers as well on the brink of elimination. So it sets up, this is a massive day in Major League Baseball. Tigers and Guardians, a game apiece. That's at 3 o'clock. Mets, Phillies. Again, Phillies on the edge of elimination at 5 o'clock. Royals, Yankees. That series tied at 1. That's at 7 o'clock. And Dodgers in San Diego at 9 o'clock. Again, the Dodgers lose. And Ohtani and Mookie Betts and that big-time roster, they would go home. So, again, 3, 5, 7, and 9, a loaded day in Major League Baseball.
Final day of the season with more than 2 games. So after this, we'll get into just 2 games left. Obviously, we'll get into championship series where there's only 2 series left in that one. So again, best of 5, a lot of drama here upcoming today. Other items of note, Minnesota Lynx, they will take on the New York Liberty in the WNBA Finals. They beat the Connecticut Sun in a decisive Game 5 last night. Thursday night football tomorrow. Boy, you want to talk about a team that needs a win. San Francisco 49ers at 2-3 at Seattle tomorrow night.
It's a big game.
That is a large one there. Seattle 3-2 on the season. Love to see IndyCar. That announcement yesterday for 2026 street race down there around Jerry's World. Jerry Jones, Roger Penske. I'm thinking of Robert
Get your
Sala.
damn act together.
Penske and Jerry Jones shaking hands down there. So I think that would be a heavily viewed and you would think heavily promoted as well. All the Cowboys games on Fox, the IndyCar
I like it.
schedule going to Fox. That should get a lot of eyes and a lot of people on that end. And yes, Robert Sala, who I was mentioning earlier, fired after 5 games there. Nathaniel Hackett and the play caller for the Jets, he keeps his job.
Yeah, well, that was the rumor that maybe Sala was going to eliminate Hackett from calling the plays. Maybe there's some stabbing in the back because of that. So the Jets are a mess, but on Monday night, if they beat the Bills, they're first place in the AFC East, and they would at least be a 4 seed going in.
We know nothing about backstabbing in Russia.
Nothing at all. Mark's is going to do an entire show like that after the stream tomorrow night. So let's take a break. Reminder, pop quiz coming up later in the show in about 20 minutes, but I got to know. We'll dive into the mind of Mark Dighton, and we'll do it next here. It's a Wednesday on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Well, last week at this time, I think I was screaming, it's a pumpkin patch, apple orchard type weekend. Several people took me up on this idea. Reached out, hey, great idea, can't wait to do this. Very smart. I see what the college football schedule looks like upcoming. You're getting ahead of things here. And then what happens? The football gods laugh at me. They say, Vanderbilt's going to beat Bama. 5 of the top 11 teams are going to lose.
The SEC would be in shambles.
But we will be rewarded coming up this weekend. Again, to go over this slate one more time, Red River Shootout. Now, this is an SEC game. You ready for Texas-Oklahoma as a conference game?
Well, I am. You have noticed one big thing, that it's been moved. It used to be a high noon game. It used to be 11 a.m. local time. Now it's a 3:30 game on ABC. I wonder what into that. I mean, obviously, it's probably TV, I would imagine.
Game day back on the West Coast. This one a little bit different than Cal-Miami. How about Oregon and Ohio State from Eugene?
Okay, now that's a big game. That's a huge game. Like, I don't know if Oregon hasn't they haven't been as good as I thought they would be. I thought they would be a little bit more dynamic offensively. They haven't been, so I kind of think Ohio State may win that game.
Ohio State a road favorite in that one by 3.5. That is 2 versus 3. Again, Texas is 1, and what's his name's back, right? Quinn Ewers is back.
Yeah, Quinn Ewers is back. Texas is one of 3 teams, by the way, that has not trailed this season. Do you know the other 2? IU's the other one, and then Army.
I was going to guess Navy.
Yeah, and then there's one team, I forget who put this out. Is Brett McMurphy. There's one team that hasn't led a minute all season. Kent State.
Oh,
how about that?
The flashes.
Kent State. I'm going to say Texas trails this weekend. I'm not saying they lose, but I say they trail to Oklahoma at some point.
I can't believe Penn State is ranked 4th. They are at USC. Again, USC desperately needs that. And then, I love this one. Lane Kiffin and Brian Kelly at night.
That's great. Listen, I'm taking LSU in that game.
I'm
taking LSU.
In Death Valley. So 4 pretty big ones. Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State at USC, Ole Miss at LSU. IU bye week, Purdue, nearly a 3-touchdown underdog at Illinois. Notre Dame back at it. They've got Stanford at home.
Do you know anything about Stanford? I know they're 2-3. I don't know a damn
Troy
thing about
Taylor's their coach. The quarterback's a little banged up.
Okay.
And they no longer have 10 tight ends on the field at one time like they did with Harbaugh.
Like they used to with Harbaugh. Hey, listen, I'm not going to hate on Harbaugh. He made Stanford a good team.
But
almost
Stanford
a great team.
Won at Notre Dame a few years ago.
Yes, they did. Well,
I'm not happy about that. Mark Dykton, I got to know.
He's got questions.
How about a game?
They've got answers.
Hey, I'm more of a cornhole man myself.
Sports, music, movies.
What?
High fashion.
That Hansel's so hot right now.
And everything in between.
You ever seen a foot with 4 toes?
It's time to get a glimpse into the mind of Mark Dykton.
Stop it, you're scaring me.
It's time for I Gotta Know.
Okay, you 2 punks, I want a good, clean fight. Let's get it on.
All right, we go to a bunch of different topics here. We're going to stick to one today.
Ooh.
We are going to do a Colts season prediction redo. We've seen this team through 5 games. We're going to see if your predictions and what your predictions are for the rest of the season have changed from when we, before we played it down this year. So they are 2-3 right now. And again, these predictions can all change, as we get to Friday and whatnot. And we get the injury report. But they play at the Titans in week 5. I'm just going to jot these down. You guys tell me win or loss right now.
Wait, are we going through the rest of the schedule?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
Jeez.
Well, because we want to see. We want to see. Are they still going to be a playoff team, or what are we doing here? You can handle it, Kevin. It's win-loss.
Barely gets a Halloween.
A little win-loss. How about that?
Let's go. Kevin.
Win.
Andy.
I hope.
Oh, win.
Okay.
Win.
Next week.
If Andy's sketchy right now.
Listen, I can't have the analysis that
you're not doing analysis.
They're facing Will Levis. They'll turn it around. No, Will Levis will turn it around. That's what the data tells me. He'll throw for 318 yards. He'll act like he's facing Mississippi State on a Saturday night in the SEC.
All right, home against the Dolphins. Kevin.
Win.
All right. At the Texans.
Loss.
Yeah, loss.
Okay. All right. At Vikings.
Loss.
I'll say win.
Ooh, okay.
Darnold's got to be Darnold at some point, right?
He's kind of starting to turn back into a pumpkin a little bit. He did not play very well in London.
The Vikings weren't that good. I am worried about Brian Flores' defense there, though. Probably a little bit more than Darnold.
Home against the Bills.
Loss.
Oof.
Oh, those Bills fans are going to be obnoxious. We get it. There's a table. You set it on fire. We get it.
As of now, a Sunday night game at the Jets.
Win.
Yeah, I'll say win.
Ooh, boy. All right. Home against the Lions.
Loss. That's a tough one.
Yeah, probably lost.
Just because they can.
Paused a little bit.
If Montgomery and Gibbs are healthy, man, those guys, they can just run the football.
Again, they're so dynamic skill-wise, but, I mean, who knows how healthy they're going to be. I mean, this is why the exercise can be very difficult.
All right, schedule lightens up a little bit with the Patriots.
Win.
Better be a win.
I would hope so. At the Broncos.
Loss.
At high altitude.
I'm going to say loss. That's a tough one.
Kevin?
I'll say loss.
Hopefully Al Michaels is nowhere near the state of Colorado for that game, or he might have some issues. Home against the Titans.
Win.
Win.
Okay, all right, okay. At the Giants.
Win.
Yeah, probably. I'll go win.
And then home against the Jaguars.
I'll go win.
I'll say loss.
Okay. All right, you guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to add these up and see where we're at.
I was about to say where you're at. I was wondering, how is he doing this? How is he doing this so fast on the fly? Minnesota to me is a difficult one.
Well,
I'm with you.
November in general. I mean, what's that November slate?
Okay, so it's at Minnesota, home Buffalo, at the Jets, home Detroit. That's as difficult as you can get.
And your final game of October is at Houston.
Yes.
Okay. That is quite the stretch. That's why, again, I mean, at Tennessee and home to Miami these next 2 weeks, Levis and Scoop Huntley, I mean, those are the closest thing to must-wins as you're going to find.
Listen, I think New England is bad. First pick in the draft, bad, and they're starting Drake May behind that offensive line. I get why Brissett's a mess. I get why they're doing it. It could backfire on them. I mean, Denver does have an elite defense, like flat out. Elite defense. You're going to the altitude. You could have weather. That's December 15th. So, you just don't know in that game. And then I know everyone can make fun of them, but, if the Giants are a 7-8 win team, with the second to last week, they're going to feel like they're in it as well. I mean, them and the Colts have the same record. For them to have similar records on December 29th, I don't think is crazy. MetLife is a crap field. Could be bad weather there. To me, all these games are very 50-50. Denver, the Giants, and probably that Minnesota game are the three toughest games for me to pick going forward.
Well, I've got good news and bad
All
news.
right.
The good news is you guys still have them as having a winning record. The bad news is you guys tied and both have at 9-7.
Yeah, 9-7.
So is that good enough? Is that good enough for a playoff spot?
You mean 9-8?
Or 9-8? Yes, I'm sorry. 9-8.
Well, I picked him to be 9-8, so I guess I have him still.
Steelers
about
got
the
in
same.
at 9-8 last year, right?
Yeah,
Were they the
did.
final?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Boy, I don't know if 9-8 gets you in though.
I don't think it does.
Well, you're gonna need tiebreakers galore, and that's why right now, the divisional tiebreaker is not going in your favor at all. That's why, like, a win over Pittsburgh,
it's a good win.
Is a good win. Trying to think what else would fall into that. I guess Miami, maybe, if Miami got it back on track with Tua. I mean, that's a big ask. I feel like they could factor into that there. So, wild card wise, like, I think the AFC North is definitely going to have a second playoff team. I think the Chargers will also be a wild card team.
Okay.
Who's your third wild card team, though?
Yeah, I know.
At the start of the year, I think you would have said Miami and Buffalo.
1,000%.
I think you're getting one from the East, and you're going to get three from the North.
The AFC East.
Oh, so you're not saying the Chargers?
No.
Gosh, three from the North. Boy, you're going to need Cleveland or Cincinnati to turn it around in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's tough. I'm not sure.
I'm going to say the Bengals.
The AFC East has altered the way we view everything in the NFL. Has it not? I mean, we thought those teams would be better. We thought the Jets would be better.
Jets, yeah.
We thought Miami would be better. Those two teams, we thought one of those teams for sure would be a playoff team, and I don't know if that's the case. I can't tell you if that's the case. So, boy, that schedule, it gets tougher, man. It gets tougher. There's no doubt about it. Good stuff, Mark. All right, so 9-8. So I haven't dropped a game. I guess KB somewhere along the line did.
I feel like Mark
drop a
copped
game.
out there.
How did I cop out?
Oh, to not come up with 4 or 5 questions?
Yeah.
And to
I
just
have
come
more, but we're up against the clock, and I figured it was going to take a while to go through the schedule. Kevin almost had a panic attack just thinking about it.
I like how Mark's brain works, and I was like, okay, we're going to get a little variety here. And so we got the old pick every game of the schedule.
I was curious because we had all said, I think Kevin was at 10 wins to start the season.
I was
and
at
all
9.
that, and now that we've seen kind of the sample size, the 5-game sample size.
That's the hard part. Is like if you would have told me at the start of the year that all of a sudden, the injuries are going to play out as it has. Are you going to go 10 wins?
That's why we did the do-over.
Yeah, I mean, I picked DeForest Buckner to be the player of the year.
The do-over's hard because you don't know who's going to be hurt in the middle of November.
Well, Kevin, you play the game.
The week-to-week picking, I think, is more accurate.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Look at our records.
4-1 on the year.
I know. Don't look at mine.
What are you?
I don't know.
Are you at the bottom? Yeah.
Every time I pick them to win, they lose. Every time I pick them to lose, they win.
He had so much reluctance last week picking the Colts.
I hated it.
Did.
I was cursing myself.
My lock of the week was Seattle minus 6.5 last week. So that tells you where my sports gambling is. Let's take a break. Coming up, pop quiz. Load them up. 317
Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
That is right. The only local action tomorrow for the Pacers will be right here on these airwaves. Next week's game will be on Valley Sports Indiana, both of those home games here to close out the preseason. Zach Edey and the Grizzlies on Monday, and then the Charlotte Hornets coming up on Thursday, 2 weeks from tonight. Pacers are in Detroit for the regular season opener.
Excited. I don't know. You mentioned the Hornets. I don't know their roster very well. I need to go look on who's on their roster. Who's healthy?
Charlotte.
Yeah, who's healthy? Who's not healthy?
Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, Gordon Hayward's hung it up.
Yeah, he hung it up. I think Brandon Miller's going to have a big year. Not to do Charlotte Hornets talk, we can move on to the pop quiz. I liked him. I liked him in college.
Did you guys watch much baseball last night?
Yeah, I flipped around. I watched more of the Padres Dodgers, but
Same.
I didn't make it all the way to the end. I didn't make it to midnight to the end of the game.
I mean, the home run by Tatis was just a moonshot. Like, great fireworks the first 3 innings. I got up to pee at like 1.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, neither team scored a run the rest of the game?
I know.
The final 6 innings, no runs scored after all of that early on. So now the Padres and the Mets, those two teams have a chance to finish off their series.
Boy, I tell you, if the Mets win, that is the Mets are easily one of the more obnoxious fan bases in this country.
They got it. They got
the
it.
NLCS, man.
Indiana State pitcher last night, Sean Manaea,
He was good.
outstanding for them.
Good for him.
Night. All right, it is time for the pop quiz. 317-239-1070. Jiffy Lube oil change coming your way. Andy Sweeney, number 1 through 8.
Oh, if you go 5 for 5.
If you go 5.
Yeah, you got to win though. Come on, it's a Wednesday. It's not a Friday.
Apologies on that.
Let's go caller number 4, Mark. How does that sound?
Sounds like Andrew.
Hello, Andrew.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Andrew, do you go by Andrew, Andy, Drew?
Oh, some people call me Andy, some call me Andrew. It's kind of swings both ways.
All right, well.
Andy Sweeney, have you ever been a little bit of both, or are you
I'm an
not swinging both ways
I'm not swinging both ways like this, Andrew. If I had it to do over again, or if I went to an SEC college, if I went to Ole Miss, I probably would have ended up being an Andrew, but I didn't. Right. So, I'm an Andy. Now, when you get in the South, it's a proper name.
Sure,
Andrew.
Sure.
So I've been an Andy. I've always been an Andy, and it hasn't changed. So there you go.
This Andrew sounds like he knows what he's doing here.
Right.
Well, let's see. Let's go. Question number 1. Let's see if he knows what he's doing. All right, let's get a winner, my man. Question number 1. The Pacers opened the preseason last night with a 131-130 loss to the Hawks in Atlanta. Who led the Pacers in scoring? Was it Pascal Siakam, Cole Swider, Quentin Jackson, or Obi Toppin?
Oh, boy. I didn't get a listen last night. I'll say Toppin.
Don't overthink it, Andrew. This guy led them in scoring last year in the playoffs.
There you go.
Siakam, okay.
Yeah, Pascal Siakam. Right.
How about a yes-no question? The WNBA Finals begin tomorrow night with the Liberty hosting the Lynx in Game 1. Have the New York Liberty and Minnesota Lynx ever met in the WNBA Finals?
I don't think so.
I thought he was going to say, I don't care. So I don't think so, I guess means no, right?
Is that a no?
I think it is.
Yeah, that's a no.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Those first 2 questions, mail it in questions for Scotty. I mean, usually we're getting, Lou Gehrig or Babe Ruth.
Right.
And
Andrew, no more of that.
Yeah. All right, question number 3. The Liberty are a WNBA worst 0-5 in the finals. But here's the question.
The Bills.
They are. They really are. Name the only current team in the WNBA that is undefeated in the finals. Is it Indiana Fever, the Las Vegas Aces, the Seattle Storm, the Minnesota Lynx? Good luck.
I'd say the Seattle Storm.
Andrew, how did you know that one?
I understand.
He just told Andy, here's my middle finger. All right, Andrew, number 4 here. Who's leading Major League Baseball in home runs? Is it Pete Alonso?
In the postseason.
Here in the postseason. Thank you, Mark. Is it Pete Alonso, Fernando Tatis Jr., that one guy whose first name is Kyle and the last name is a lot of different letters, or Matt Vientos?
Kyle.
How do you say that last name?
Higashioka.
Oh, wow. That sounded great.
And
Great.
as someone who butchers names all the time, I don't know why
That was one
that
of the
name
more
I know.
fluid names come out of your mouth.
It's a surprise. No, you should absolutely be shocked that I can say that right. All right, question number 5. In the 108 runnings of the Indianapolis 500, 106 winners have been officially declared in the month of May or on June 1st. Takuma Sato won the only Indy 500 to take place outside of May when he won in 2020 the pandemic 500 that was in August. Here's the question. On this day in 1981, the United States Auto Club declared the winner of that year's race following a lengthy legal dispute. Who was named the winner of the 500 on October 9th, 1981? Was it Mario Andretti, Rick Mears, Bobby Unser, Gordon Johncock? Hopefully I said that last one right.
I remember that, John Cox.
Great start there from Andrew. Number 1, the leading scorer last night for the Pacers with 15 points.
Correcto.
Indeed, Senor Siakam, no on the Liberty Lynx finals matchup. We've not had that before. And boy number 3, Andy, he told you to just...
He did. The only undefeated team in WNBA Finals Series history. The Seattle Storm, 4-0. How about that?
Lauren Jackson, maybe? Sue Bird?
I guess. I have no idea. Yes.
4-0. As Scotty points out here, the Houston Comets are also 4-0, but the franchise was dissolved. That sounds awful. In 2008. So he started 3 for 3, and then what happened?
Yeah, Fernando Tatis leads MLB postseason in home runs. I probably would have picked Pete Alonso. Honestly,
4 for Tatis,
probably.
3 for Alonso, 3 for Kyle.
Higashioka, sorry.
I mean, that's one you got to keep on saying. That sounds so good. Bobby Unser, not Gordon Johncock.
No, I think Andrew just wanted to say Johncock, honestly. That's what I think.
I would have.
Yeah, he knew he wasn't 5 for 5, so he might as well have some fun with it.
That's kind of
Don't
wild.
think Andrew sounds like a 13-year-old on the playground. I don't think he just wanted to say Gordon Johncock.
That 500 ruling's kind of wild. It took that long to figure it out.
Wild.
Imagine if that happened today. We'd crush everybody.
I know.
We just get to crush everybody that
We were
Monday
freaking out a
afterwards.
couple years ago when they had multiple red flags in the final 5 to 10 laps. I just got my 500 tickets
Oh,
for
did
this
you?
coming year yesterday.
Oh, nice. Good for you. Now, you guys, you used to be in turn 4?
Turn 4, yeah. We're now kind of into the straightaway. But I started to put my name in for tickets because, I would hope at some point in my life, which I'm going to have to live probably quite a long time, a better priority and maybe
Right.
could move into better seats. So these tickets I have right now, to be honest, I don't love them. That they are fine.
But they're good tickets.
But I'd like to be a little higher
Yeah,
up
so
one day.
you're near the finish line, so you're seeing them
past
come out
the finish
past
line,
the finish
closer
line.
to turn 1, but
Okay.
a little bit too far, a little bit too low for my liking.
Okay, you want to be higher up so you can see more. That's
Right.
understandable.
Right,
That's fine. That's understandable. Today, Shane Steichen, what are we feeling? Jonathan Taylor doesn't practice and limited for Anthony Richardson, and we'll just have to guess how limited he is.
Yeah, again, that's going to be the key. How limited is he? Does he progress to full? I don't. Is Shane going to play the gamesmanship Matt LaFleur thing for a second week?
Right.
Yeah, with Taylor again, I think it's multiple days, and let's not lose sight of the other injuries. Kind of a sneaky one could be Ryan Kelly. If you look at the Titans, arguably their best attribute in their football team is the interior of their defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Simmons should be back, it sounds like, this week. And T'Vondre Sweat
he's
was
been
a
awesome.
polarizing draft pick.
Remember, we talked about Sweat.
Yeah.
We kicked him around, I should say, as a name that if we were
nobody's
to be
kicking him. He's kicking other people's
If
asses.
we were to be surprised about the pick, he was a name we brought up because Ballard loves the trenches.
Disruptive defensive tackle, was a menace on Monday Night Football against the Dolphins. Some off-the-field questions, but so far, so good. So, when you think about Will Fries at right guard, potentially Ryan Kelly, where is he at with that neck? Tanner Bortolini at center. Just some items to watch here injury-wise. And then, of course, Kenny Moore and Kwity Paye on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, they just, for the Colts, I know they've had some issues before these guys got injured, but they got to start getting some of these guys back. They just, the depth of any team, but especially the depth of their team it's really catching up with them. And listen, we're not cutting them slack. I know you as a fan, you're not cutting them slack, and I say you, the audience, not cutting them slack. I guess, I've tried to a little bit, but they've just been so porous on defense. It's like, guys, you gotta be better than this, even though, you got guys who are first and second rounders and fourth rounders and everything else that's on that team, but they got to get some of these guys back. I guess I'm holding out hope that we have good news from Jonathan Taylor this week. I don't expect it, but I'm holding out hope that we do.
And we'll see about Will Levis down there. There were still some questions, I think, on would he practice today with that AC joint sprain. For our baseball audience out there, probably one of the best days of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be 4 games, again, starting at 3 o'clock all the way to 9 o'clock tonight.
Last day with more than 2 games today for Major League Baseball.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So that's sad as well. All right, good stuff today. Check out the podcast, 1075thefan.com. JMV at 3, Jake and Jimmy at